becoming infinitely stronger starting from Marvel. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in the saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 326: High-Speed Chase. On the ground, Bai Ye stood tall, his spiritual power stored in the illusory space transforming into pure computational power for analysis, verification, and upgrading. With just a glance, the Dao techniques researched by these cultivators in the sky were instantly understood. Universal Aurora. 100% completion, top and destruction, power increased by 317% after improvement, 10,000 Snow's heavenly splendor. 100% completion, comes with a weakening effect after activation, power increased by 213% after improvement, purple extreme demon flash. 100% completion, garbage, no need for improvement. Without a doubt, as the Dao techniques were analyzed, a blinding aurora erupted within the 99 layers of the bitter sea, easily extinguishing the light overhead. Like a magnificent firework exploding, it bloomed all around, obliterating the entire low mountain. The remaining power of Bai Ye's Dao techniques remained undiminished, enveloping the cultivators amidst their drastically changed expressions, illuminating the entire Spirit Ruins cave heaven. Seconds later, the light faded, and around Bai Ye, the previously aloof and ethereal cultivators were now disheveled, their clothes tattered, large swaths of flesh melted away, a horrifying sight. Some of the lower-level Divine Bridge elders were even melted down to skeletons, skin and flesh still attached, lying lifeless on the ground. Undoubtedly, they had failed miserably. They had come full of confidence, only to be crushed by sheer superior cultivation level and outnumbered, yet still met their demise. These people were now frantically trying to save their lives. Bai Ye asked, "Do you still have any techniques to use? If not, I will exterminate you all." His words were utterly undisguised, like a whisper to an insect, showing no intention of letting them go, displaying extreme arrogance. "Senior, I am the head of the Lingsu Cave Heaven, backed by the Yaoguang Holy Land, so, what do you intend to do?" Headmaster Li tried to stall for time, but Bai Ye strode forward, causing him to flee in a flash. But how could he escape Bai Ye's grasp? In a mere blink of an eye, he was before the sect leader, his jade-like hand pressing down. PFFT, half of his head sank into his chest cavity, and sect leader Li instantly became sect leader Yu. "Answer what you're asked, enough with the nonsense." Bai Ye withdrew his hand, and the sect leader before him swayed before collapsing to the ground with a thud, causing everyone's hearts to tremble, a sense of shared fate rising within them. This killing star, the other cultivators cursed inwardly, but the death of their first sect leader had shattered their resolve. As Bai Ye spoke, streaks of light appeared around them, and some prepared to flee. But after flying only a few meters, light gathered within Bai Ye's sea of bitterness, and each fleeing person was struck by a divine blast, exploding on the spot. The other cultivators who wanted to escape abruptly stopped their flight, not daring to expose their backs to Bai Ye. An elder shouted, "Don't be afraid, everyone. He's only one person, and having just used so many techniques to fight back, he might not be able to kill us all before his spiritual energy runs out." Encouraged by him, the crowd regained their courage. But as the elder finished speaking, a sword formed from spiritual energy, severing his head and sending it rolling aside, a stark reminder of their fate. "Since you have nothing of value, then prepare to die," Bai Ye said. The light representing death shone again, aimed at the crowd, ready to obliterate them all on the spot. Just as fear gripped all the cultivators, an old man pointed at Bai Ye and questioned, "Are you scared?" So eager to silence us all, these words caused Bai Ye's light to pause slightly. The light wave that was about to unleash stopped, and a voice rang out, "Interesting. Tell me." Phew! The old man secretly breathed a sigh of relief, then said, "Those who entered the sect like you have already spoken. You possess the secret of the ancient forbidden land. You're afraid we'll leak the information, so you're rushing to kill us to silence us. A very good provocation, but you'll still die." Bai Ye smiled, his light suddenly blazing, instantly melting the old man's body into a pool of blood. Then, various colored lights flashed, instantly killing most of the people present, leaving only one standing frozen in place. Looking at his comrade whose body was now nothing but dust, the terror of life and death gripped the survivor's heart. Before he could even feel relief, a stream of light severed his Deo foundation, reducing him to mortal. My cultivation, the old man aged considerably in an instant, his back hunched over, the feeling was no better than death. Did that scoundrel just say I was afraid? Bai Ye stared directly at the mortal and said, then go get reinforcements, the old man murmured. That's right, just leak everything about me. Whether it's an ancient aristocratic family or a holy land, anyone with the guts will come after me. Bai Ye sneered, I've never experienced being hunted by the whole world before. The old man stared at Bai Ye with cannibalistic eyes. You madman, do you really think you can fight against the entire world? To correct you, should it be that this world really thinks it can fight against me? Bai Ye stared at the old man and said, tell everyone, no matter who comes, no matter who they are, I will kill them all, I will wipe them all out, and you, as a witness, will live on forever. Bai Ye said slowly, you will witness the birth of a new myth. As he spoke, Bai Ye laughed wildly and stomped the ground. Under the old man's hateful gaze, he vanished from the spot, leaving him standing alone. Inside the main hall where the discussion had taken place, several cultivators at the Life Spring realm were guarding the place. Bequing and the other disciples, due to their low strength, did not follow the elders but instead stayed behind to prevent Yifan and the others from leaving. Secretly, several players were sitting cross-legged, diligently cultivating, preparing to recover some of their strength before forcibly killing Bequing and escaping the cave. Yifan and the others remained anxiously in place, worrying about their future. Boom! Suddenly, a bright light erupted outside the hall, as if a sun had fallen to earth. Has a fight already broken out? Yifan and the others looked at the blinding light outside the hall, their expressions filled with worry. A minute later, a howling wind and thunder were heard, and a figure descended into the hall like a whirlwind. Long hair whipped behind him like a demon god, and a slightly immature face scanned everyone present. Master Bai, upon seeing the newcomer, Yifan and the others exclaimed in surprise. It seemed the battle was over. The group of sect leaders and elders who went to attack had undoubtedly suffered a crushing defeat and were wiped out. Bai Ye didn't answer. Several streaks of light flashed, annihilating all the disciples in the hall. After finishing, he glanced at the group and said, now I have a question for you. Just now, which little brat tattled? Chapter 327. To practice this skill, one must first. Which kid tattled just now? Bai Ye asked the entire room, his tone unreadable, yet it exerted immense pressure on everyone. It was Liu Yunzi. Without hesitation, everyone pointed to the middle-aged man in the corner, trembling as if suffering from epilepsy. After being subjected to soul-searching by numerous elders, Liu Yunzi's mind was on the verge of collapse. He couldn't even think coherently, he was already a cripple. Bai Ye's gaze also fell on the man in the corner. He's already crippled? This is truly killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. No, boss, I have a way to restore him to normal. I guarantee he'll be unable to live, unable to die. Suddenly, a player stepped forward and said, oh. Bai Ye glanced at him in surprise. Then I'll leave it to you. I want him to remain in pain, at least temporarily after I leave, at least for 10 years. Boss, I guarantee there won't be a problem, the player assured. Alright, come find me in 10 years, and I'll give you the position of the Empire's chief executioner. Bai Ye glanced at the player and said, after all, these players wouldn't act without a reason. They might agree verbally, but whether they'd actually carry it out after they left was another matter. Chief executioner of the Empire, what kind of position is that? The player wondered, but didn't show it. As he spoke, Bai Ye stopped in front of a magnificent stone pillar in a grand hall. Seeing Bai Ye stop, the others stepped forward and asked, Immortal Master, what should we do now? What to do? Do whatever you want. Bai Ye stretched out his crystalline fingers and began carving on the stone pillar. His fingertip pierced through it, and stone dust fell in a flurry. Anyway, I'm preparing to run away. You can all go your own way, boss. Since your strength is amazing, why don't we go all the way and take over the entire cave? A player likely wiped his neck and suggested. Don't disturb my enjoyment of the game, Bai Ye warned. Then Immortal Master, you're already preparing to run away. What are you still writing here? A player asked curiously. Without carrots dangling in front of me, how can a donkey run? I need to give them some motivation to chase me, Bai Ye said calmly. The motivation for the pursuit, everyone was speechless. It was the first time they had heard of someone being pursued providing motivation for their pursuers. Was this some kind of entrapment? As for what these things are, I call it Everyone Has Merit Practice 3.0, a watered-down version. But you should have heard of another, more common name. Bai Ye smiled slightly and said, the Sunflower Manual. The Sunflower Manual. Looking at the words on the stone pillar, Ye Fan and the others couldn't help but gasp, instinctively squeezing their legs together. Jin Yuang naturally existed in the world of shrouding the heavens, so he knew what kind of evil martial art the Sunflower Manual was. However, no one understood why Bai Ye would carve this. Did he think cultivators would practice such a thing? Compared to the overwhelming power of cultivation, the Sunflower Manual written by Jin Yuang was not only of average power but also had huge consequences. Seemingly sensing their confusion, Bai Ye explained, this Sunflower Manual is a treasure. It's easy to learn and master. While its power may not match that of a Dao Palace cultivator, it grants a lifespan of 5,000 years. That's roughly equivalent to living a saint's lifetime with just a small sacrifice. 5,000 years, everyone gasped. Yesterday, they learned about this world's cultivation system from Wei Wei. Even the saint lords of the major holy lands didn't live more than 4,000 years. Yet Bai Ye could casually pull out a single article and live 5,000 years. For a moment, even those present felt a surge of desire, their eyes burning as they stared at the scripture before them. They began to think that the price wasn't so unacceptable after all. And this was Bai Ye's goal, immortality? Then castrate yourself. With castration, one could easily live a second life. Becoming a saint requires a lifetime of arduous cultivation, but by cutting off one's own arm to become a eunuch, one could possess the lifespan of a saint. It's foreseeable that once this immortal technique spreads, those obsessed with longevity will definitely start cultivating it, ushering in a new era of self-castration from the world of covering the sky. Immortal master, is there an immortal technique that can be cultivated without castration? Someone couldn't help but ask. Yes, Bai Ye lightly tapped his head, it's in my head. If you want to know, come and snatch it. Techniques that extend life by 10,000, 20,000, or even 50,000 years aren't unheard of. The crowd fell silent. This was truly meant to motivate those who were hunting him down, but the motivation was a bit too much. It was easy to imagine that those old monsters nearing the end of their lifespans would go completely mad. At that time, a bloodbath that would engulf the entire continent would unfold. As he spoke, Bai Ye withdrew his hand, nodding in satisfaction at the scripture inscribed on a stone pillar before him. It was filled with detailed cultivation texts and precautions. Because of the mimetic contagion within the chat group, any technique shared by a group member could automatically generate a corresponding cultivation system within the user's body after reading it. Bai Ye's emasculated version of the technique, which everyone can practice, requires self-castration as a prerequisite. Even if one switches to another technique midway, this physical state must be maintained. Simply put, Bai Ye had already blocked all paths. Everyone, we'll meet again. From now on, you don't need to keep my secret anymore, Bai Ye said with a carefree laugh, disappearing from the hall in the blink of an eye. As he left, the people present scattered like birds and beasts. After all, those elders and sect leaders who went to hunt down Bai Ye were clearly in trouble. What good would it do if they stayed? Unfortunately, most of the people present were mortals, powerless against the cultivators inside the cave. Once the disciples inside the cave reacted, they immediately captured all the escapees. In the end, apart from the players and a few others like Yifan who escaped, most of the tourists and university group members were captured. Senior Sister Wei Wei, what should we do now? A disciple respectfully reported to the girl. After all, she was now the strongest in the entire cave. Master and the others have probably met with misfortune. We don't know who did it. It's best to stabilize the situation and win back the hearts of the people first. Wei Wei was somewhat uneasy and looked at Li Xiaoman and the others. Please tell me what happened? You should know something. And what about Bai Ye? Did he also escape from the cave? No. Actually, the one who did it was Immortal Master Bai Ye, someone whispered. After all, Bai Ye had already instructed that the secret should not be kept. What? It was that kid? How is that possible? Wei Wei's face showed the same expression as the elders and sect leader before. Chapter 328 The Great Treasure Exists. Hearing these people's accounts, Wei Wei subconsciously recalled her conversation with Bai Ye yesterday. At that time, she felt Bai Ye was no ordinary person. His speech, demeanor, and even that bouncy, bitter sea had all left a deep impression. She felt then that if this young man hadn't died young, he would definitely be extraordinary. Then, someone told her that her sect had been destroyed. Her teachers and sect leader were all dead, and the one who did it was that young man from yesterday. Impossible, absolutely impossible, Wei Wei shook her head vigorously, her beautiful face filled with determination. Don't try to sway my resolve. That Bai Ye was clearly just a mortal. How could he kill all the elders and sect leader of the cave? The others weren't surprised by Wei Wei's disbelief. These days, the truth was more fantastical than logic. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it either. With their patient explanation, Wei Wei roughly understood what had happened. So, Master and the others, really were killed by that kid, Wei Wei confirmed, and everyone nodded vigorously. Actually, we're just innocent ordinary people. Li Xiaoman and the others tried their best to distance themselves. After all, they were genuinely dragged into this by accident. They weren't Yifan who had consumed the sacred fruit in holy water, nor were they players rebuilding their cultivation. They were simply innocent bystanders. They only became involved with Bai Ye and his group because they all came out of the Nine Dragons coffin. Senior Sister Wei Wei, what should we do next? Should we issue a warrant for Bai Ye's arrest? A disciple asked, only to be met with skeptical looks from the other disciples. No matter how strong you are, can you be as powerful as the sect leader and elders? They've already met with misfortune, you still want to issue a warrant for that villain? What if he turns around and attacks us? Wei Wei was speechless, but casually replied, this matter is of great importance. Soon, people from the Holy Land will arrive and report everything. The Holy Land will then make its decision. After briefly digesting what they had said, she asked, so, is there anything else you need to add? Yes, Wang Zhuan nodded. In the main hall where the sect leader and elders were, there's a stone carving with a cultivation technique left by Bai Ye. A cultivation technique. Wei Wei was taken aback. What kind of cultivation technique? Hesitatingly, Wang Zhuan uttered, the sunflower manual. An incense stick later, Wei Wei stood before the stone pillars of the council hall. When she saw the opening line of the everyone has the merit to practice the castrated version, to practice this technique, one must first castrate oneself, her beautiful face flushed slightly. As she read on, upon hearing that it granted a lifespan of 5,000 years, but the prerequisite was that men had to castrate themselves and women had to remove their uterus, a faint blush crept onto her face. This strange cultivation technique, it must be fake. How could there be a technique with such bizarre conditions? Wei Wei shook her head vigorously, unwilling to believe it. After all, the requirements of this technique were too strange, yet insignificant compared to the lifespan gained, which was too contradictory. Actually, Senior Sister, someone beside her reminded her, Bai Ye said this technique is easy to learn and master. Just find a mortal who is nearing the end of their life to test it on. Wei Wei's face darkened, and she remained silent for a long time. A day later, an elder from the Yaoguang Holy Land brought his disciples to the Lingsu Cave Heaven. Looking at the environment inside the cave heaven, he frowned. Upon seeing Wei Wei arrive, the elder proactively inquired, what happened in the cave? Why is it so chaotic? Where is sect leader Li? Why are you here to see me? Reporting to the elders of the Holy Land, sect leader Li and several other elders were killed by thieves yesterday, but they left behind a cultivation technique, which the Holy Land hopes will be taken seriously. A cultivation technique, the elder scoffed, slightly waving his whisk. Can it compare to the many methods within the Holy Land? Reporting to the elders, perhaps, it really can. Wei Wei hesitated. Oh, could what that fellow left behind be a complete Taoist scripture? No, it's a technique never before seen, Wei Wei reported truthfully. A day later, the entire Lingsu cave was completely surrounded by the elders and sect leaders of the Yaoguang Holy Land. The Yaoguang Holy Lord arrived at the cave and, looking at the strictly guarded elders, asked, you said you discovered an immortal cultivation method here? Quickly take me to see it. Yes, Holy Lord, the elder responded, leading the Holy Lord to the stone pillars of the main hall inscribed with scriptures. The Holy Lord solemnly scanned the text from top to bottom, pausing briefly at the prerequisites for cultivation, before continuing to scan the entire text and memorizing it. A moment later, sensing the meridians emerging within his body like unraveling silk, his expression grave. This was absolutely different from the existing system, it was a completely different path. It required no life substance, and lifespan was not affected by the rules of this world, but rather forged its own way. Among all the meridians in his body, only the foot joint liver meridian, the foot joint kidney meridian, and the governing vessel, 3 meridians that should appear on the penis, were missing. In other words, even if the cultivation method was modified, the prerequisite of self-castration would remain unchanged. Is the claim of extending lifespan by 5,000 years true? The Holy Lord turned his gaze to Elder Wang, who had arrived at this grotto heaven first. Elder Wang reported, the other day, Lingsu Cave Heaven found several elders to practice this technique. In just 2 days, their physiques have improved remarkably, almost to the point of rejuvenation. Even if it doesn't have the miraculous effect of 5,000 years, it's almost the same. It's unheard of. However, Elder Wang hesitated. Don't hesitate, speak freely. Although those cultivators have been rejuvenated, after practicing, they feel an intense burning desire throughout their bodies, unable to control themselves. What did you say? The Holy Lord couldn't help but widen his eyes. They've already castrated themselves, yet they still can't control their urge to release. This technique is utterly insidious. Afterwards, we used spiritual medicine to repair those cultivators' bodies, but as soon as they could have intercourse, their lifespan rapidly diminished, and in the blink of an eye, their vital energy was severely depleted, making them look much older than before they started practicing. Hiss, the Holy Lord gasped. The thought that this technique could extend one's lifespan by 5,000 years, but require remaining in a state of perpetual fiery torment during that time, was utterly infuriating. How could there be such a deliberately torturous method? The Yaoguang Saint Master and others who knew its effects cursed inwardly. This was simply inhuman. What about Bai Ye, who left behind the technique? The Yaoguang Saint Master asked. We haven't found any trace of him, but we learned from the memories of others who came out of the desolate ancient forbidden land that guy also had methods to extend lifespan by 10,000, 50,000, or even 100,000 years, and he once said, want the method of immortality? If you want it, I can give it to you. Go find it. I've stored everything in my memory, Elder Wang repeated, leaving the Yaoguang Saint Master speechless. Chapter 329 Wholesale of the Sunflower Manual. Those people must have already discovered what I left behind. Inside a magnificent, golden hall, Bai Ye leaned back in a soft chair, his legs casually crossed, his body swaying gently. He was acutely aware of the allure of what he had left behind to the people of the shrouding the heavens world. He believed it wouldn't be long before it swept the entire world. After all, the spiritual energy of the entire Big Dipper was abundant. Even those of average talent could cultivate tier 10 or even 100 times faster than in Yu Buquan's world. A mere year or two was enough to reach perfection in the castrated version. And even without perfection, just a day or two of basic cultivation would yield remarkable results in prolonging life. Bai Ye was extremely curious about what those driven mad by the desire for immortality would do. Immortal, we have complied with your requests. Before Bai Ye, countless officials in court robes knelt in the hall. The middle-aged man, who had originally worn a dragon robe, also knelt on the ground with these officials, trembling as he reported. As the emperor of the entire Yan kingdom, he should have possessed unparalleled power in the mortal world. 5 days ago, this young man had come to the palace in public and overwhelmed everyone with his absolute power. Even the grand preceptor of the other shore realm was killed with a single palm strike, and he then took control of the entire court, making them do his bidding. When asked why he had come, the young man said he was being chased and was fleeing for his life. But what chaste person would dare to come to the capital of a country so arrogantly and lie around in the palace? Hearing the voice of the Yan emperor, Bai Ye glanced at him lightly and said, have all the cultivation techniques I asked you to photocopy been distributed? Yes, countless copies have been made and distributed to various prefectures and counties, as well as major sects. As the Yan emperor spoke, he couldn't help but tremble when he thought of the appearance of the palace eunuchs after he had them practice the techniques yesterday. This was definitely a demonic art, but the effects were too tempting, and he couldn't help but be tempted. Is that so? Then it should be about time. Bai Ye gently tapped the dragon throne and muttered to himself. Next, the whole world would probably be swept up in a self-castration frenzy, and those who hated him to death would probably hunt him down all over the world. Let the bullets fly for a while, Bai Ye thought, glancing disdainfully at the world before him. They could fly and teleport, yet their standard of living was still so backward. On most planets, farming relied on human labor. The farmers in this fantasy world were no different from those in ordinary worlds. In the neighboring star system, technology wasn't incapable of development, but even with mechas, they were still using the old-fashioned arena system. He didn't know what was going on. Exiting the game, Bai Ye returned to the street and said to his underling guarding the game retail store, "I want some barbecue. Go buy me too." "Yes, boss, I'll go buy them right away." The underling quickly ran off, returning in about 10 minutes. Including the time to eat the barbecue, at a 1,000 flow rate, 8 or 9 days would pass in the game. He could log back and then. Thinking this, a few minutes later, the underling brought him 2 cartilage skewers, which Bai Ye took and ate. During his meal, a storm was brewing in the game. The news that the Yao Guang Holy Land had painstakingly tried to suppress was directly breached by Bai Ye's mass release of the censored version. Various holy lands and ancient worlds were completely bewildered by the extremely cruel cultivation conditions of the technique. But where there's a high reward, there's a will to be a hero. The first powerful figure to castrate himself appeared, resolutely cutting off his own blade to survive. But when the elder, whose hair had been withered and whose face bore the marks of age, emerged the next day radiant with black hair and a handsome face, the entire Beidao region erupted in excitement. Of course, these people also noticed the elder's difference. Firstly, his eyes were different, even looking at Asao with a peculiar emotion. This castrated elder also felt that others looked at him differently. Even if he didn't show it, he felt that people were calling him an old eunuch behind his back. And following the first castrated powerful figure, the second and third, also resolutely wielding their blades to prolong their lives. Meanwhile, the entire Beidao region was searching for Bai Ye's whereabouts, hoping to uncover the secrets within his mind. After all, if they could find him sooner, he might live longer without having to commit suicide. Some tried to consult diviners to predict Bai Ye's location, but they discovered that his divine secrets were obscured by powerful magic, making it impossible to pinpoint his whereabouts. Thus, they could only search physically. However, Bai Ye's movements were not concealed, and soon it was discovered that he had appeared in the Yan Kingdom's palace before disappearing. Countless cultivators immediately infiltrated the Yan Kingdom to search for Bai Ye. In reality, Bai Ye, of course, was unaware of what had happened. Knowing only that his actions would cause a great storm, he was quietly eating barbecue. As he ate, another thought suddenly popped into his mind. It seems that simply using the sunflower manual isn't enough. It would be more effective to use techniques like the Shattered Dream Blade or the Self-Green Engine, Bai Ye pondered seriously. For example, while cultivating the Shattered Dream Blade could extend lifespan, it would inflict a cuckold's curse, causing the person you love to leave you. Or consider the Self-Green Engine, which, during cultivation, would allow you to switch genders like the Shen and Glazed Art, leading to irresistible love for yourself. However, to extend your lifespan, you could only do so through dual cultivation. He wondered if his will to achieve this was strong enough. For a moment, while eating barbecue, Bai Ye subconsciously began to think. The heaven-defying techniques he had heard from friends in his previous life, such as the military overcoat technique, ice demon art, inequality immortal art, and self-eating divine strategy, surfaced in his mind one by one. Ugh, Bai Ye threw down the barbecue with a feeling of nausea. "Boss, is the barbecue not good? I'll go over and beat the stall owner to pulp," his underling said angrily. "No, I just don't have an appetite," Bai Ye replied dismissively. His overactive imagination wasn't good either, it was affecting his appetite. Losing his appetite, Bai Ye re-entered the game, still located in the Yan Kingdom's palace. The Yan King was currently bowing and scraping, explaining Bai Ye's whereabouts to yet another group of cultivators. As a figure appeared beside him, everyone froze, only to see Bai Ye, just as he had been days before, standing before them politely waving and saying, "Hello." After a moment of stunned silence, a cultivator rushed towards Bai Ye, shouting, "Bai Ye is here." Before he could finish, his head exploded, blood staining the entire hall. "That's right, Bai Ye is here. Come and chase me if you dare," Bai Ye finished, laughing as he roared. With that, he vanished from the palace in a flash of light. Chapter 330 The Tomb of the Azure Emperor appears. Bai Ye has reappeared in Yan. This news spread like wildfire throughout the entire Beidao region, and countless people rushed towards Yan with a roar. Those who hadn't chosen to cultivate the castrated version of the internal energy technique wanted to capture Bai Ye, while those who had chosen to cultivate it wanted to capture him even more. Because of a single cultivation technique, Bai Ye had almost offended the entire world. Within the capital of Yan, Bai Ye, who had uttered this roar, hurriedly ran through the city. The next moment, a burly man dressed entirely in black robes blocked Bai Ye's path, his eyes fixed on him with an incredibly sinister gaze. "Hey! I finally caught you. Quickly hand over the undamaged life-extending technique. Why are you being so sinister? You haven't already practiced it, have you?" Bai Ye's eyes were filled with mockery. It seemed the first culprit had appeared. Upon hearing this, the burly man's face darkened even more. He abandoned negotiations, and a gigantic palm made of pure energy pressed down on Bai Ye. Wherever the palm passed, wisps of black energy leaked out, and the hard blue bricks on the ground were completely corroded. Without hesitation, Bai Ye unleashed his pure physical strength, striking the hand. With a mere clash, the black hand exploded, the shockwave leveling nearly half the imperial palace. A day later, on a low mountain tens of thousands of miles from the capital of Yan, a golden armored man at the peak of the Dao Palace realm pointed his longsword at Bai Ye. "Traitor, surrender now to avoid further suffering." Before Bai Ye could reply, the weapon in his hand blazed brightly, transforming into a 10,000-foot-long sword beam that pierced towards Bai Ye. The next moment, the entire mountain was pierced by the sword energy, creating numerous holes, but the sword energy was instantly shattered upon contact with Bai Ye's body. 3 days later, Bai Ye sat comfortably on a throne in the celestial realm, as countless cultivators at the peak of the Dao Palace realm, along with those newly entering the Four Extremes realm, surged towards him. Their eyes were filled with pure greed, but in the next moment, their gazes transformed into extreme fear. Bai Ye gently reached out, and a gigantic black hand, capable of covering an area of 1 kilometer, suddenly appeared, pressing down upon the countless cultivators. Although enormous, the hand's muscles, bones, and even fingerprints were indistinguishable from those of an ordinary person, incredibly detailed. However, it was enveloped in a swirling black aura. Even a mere wisp of it would be enough to corrode all the cultivators present. With a deafening boom, the hand descended, covering most of the cultivators. Screams of agony filled the air, but ceased in an instant. You say you can't find anyone?" The Ji family's holy master looked at the elder, a half-step great power, with astonishment. A mere Yan kingdom, with countless holy lands, aristocratic families, and even those demon races drawing manpower from it, and a week has passed. The land has been turned upside down, yet not even a single youth whose strength hasn't reached the fourth extreme realm can be found. This old man also finds it hard to believe, but that kid seems to possess an ability to avoid danger and seek good fortune. The elder sighed. It's not that no one can find that kid, but each time they find him, it's only juniors from the Dao Palace or even the fourth extreme realms who are easily killed by him. That kid seems to be favored by destiny. On the first day, those who died were only at the Dao Palace realm. On the second day they reached the Dao Palace Perfection realm, and after a few days, even the fourth extreme realm couldn't resist. According to the latest intelligence, more than 34th extreme realm cultivators have already died at that kid's hands. Listening to the elder's account, the Ji family's holy master frowned deeply. It wasn't just him, other major forces were also feeling an unprecedented sense of unease. The powerful ones were nowhere to be found, and the weaker ones, once found, were too difficult to defeat. They were incredibly troublesome. Even with such a large-scale conflict in the Yan kingdom, the losses were so great, with no gains whatsoever. Some smaller forces began to back down, unwilling to get involved in this mess. Much time passed, and as more and more cultivators died at Bai Ye's hands, their cultivation levels began to approach the fourth level of the fourth heaven. Within the Yan kingdom, a location shone brightly. The tomb of the first Dao proving great emperor of the post-ancient era, the Azure Emperor's tomb, opened. This caused a huge uproar. Many high-ranking members of the various ancient families and holy lands were already there because of Bai Ye's affair. Now, the opening of the Azure Emperor's tomb escalated the situation, with countless people rushing to the scene, hoping to get a share. The tomb of an ancient great emperor, the mausoleum of a great emperor, held immense allure for those who weren't even saints. For a time, even the matter of Bai Ye was suppressed, and infighting began. Watching the clash and explosion of various secret techniques and magical artifacts in the sky from afar, Bai Ye wore a satisfied expression. To maintain the thrill of the entire chase, he had used his micromanagement skills to the extreme. He chose to avoid enemies he couldn't defeat without using his cultivation cheats, proceeding cautiously and improving step by step. For this reason, he reluctantly let go of the holy sons of various major powers. After all, those people definitely had protectors by their side, and some powers might even have been generous enough to give them imperial weapons for protection. But now it was different. The Azure Emperor's tomb had opened, and all the powers were fighting tooth and nail for it. Now, those holy sons and daughters who came to Yan Kingdom for training were completely isolated, giving him an opportunity. Soloing dungeons is indeed a bit boring. Looking at the scattered light waves from the distant battle, Bai Ye lightly waved the feather fan he'd snatched from another cultivator and sighed, "I really do need 2 maids to serve me." As he spoke, his figure transformed into a stream of light and disappeared, heading towards the gathering places of various forces he had been keeping an eye on these past few days. Inside the Ji family's gathering point, the Holy Lord and most of the elders had already set out. Only an old man at the 3rd level of the dragon transformation realm remained. "Hey Awayu, there's already a young man here who has mastered immortal techniques, and now the Demon Emperor's tomb has reappeared. Staying here any longer might lead to unforeseen circumstances. It would be safer for us to withdraw from the Yan Kingdom directly," the Dragon Transformation Realm Elder said. "My opinion differs from the elders." Heiau waved his hand, proudly stating, "I've only just broken through and was hoping to find a worthy opponent. I've heard that Bai Ye fights opponents of higher levels with ease, yet after searching for days, we haven't even caught a glimpse of him. Since that's the case, I'll change my target." "What do you want to do?" the elder frowned. "Now that Father and the others are fighting over there, other forces must be as weak as we are. Why don't we take the initiative and confront those holy sons head-on?" Ji Haoiu's eyes gleamed with intense fighting spirit. "Great. I agree with Brother Haoiu's opinion." At this moment, applause rang out from the side. A playful girl in purple, exuding an air of unparalleled nobility, said, "The Void Clan is no less powerful. If we can't catch that little thief named Bai Ye, then Brother Haoiu will go and fight the other holy sons." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331. Either way, there's a right to die. "Ziyu, you're being ridiculous too," the elder frowned and scolded, but was immediately interrupted by Ji Haoiu. "That's exactly right. I've already broken through to the 4th level, and I just need a touchstone to understand my position." As they spoke, the brother and sister exchanged a glance, their minds made up. The elder, who understood the siblings' stubbornness, sighed and shook his head helplessly. Fine, I'll go with you." As he spoke, everyone's expression changed. Because the blue sky above them began to turn crimson, as if some monstrous demon was approaching. "This is the blood sea of the underworld." The elder's expression was extremely solemn, as if he had seen something terrifying. At this moment, a clear, youthful voice rang out not far away, "Blood sea of the underworld, what a terrible name you gave my phenomenon." Everyone looked over at the sound, their expressions slightly dazed, as if they saw a torrent of blood spreading and engulfing them. This was not a fantasy, for above the sea of blood, a stunningly beautiful young man rode the waves towards them. Within that sea of blood, countless corpses rolled, each one tattered, their bodies riddled with wounds of varying degrees, swords, palm strikes, fist strikes, and knife wounds. Seeing the crimson river engulfing them like a tsunami, panic immediately gripped the Ji family. Ji Haoiu and the others leaped into the air, floating to confront the young man. Those who couldn't dodge in time were swept away by the crimson river, then entangled and attacked by the tens of thousands of corpses within the sea of blood, soon becoming one of them. This was precisely the power of Bai Ye's bitter sea phenomenon. The crimson barrier it created could block perception, and the spirits of all those he killed would transform into members of the Sea of Blood, fighting for him. "Hey! Your Ji family dared to send people to hunt me down. You have met your demise. I have come to act on behalf of heaven," Bai Ye declared, surveying the entire scene. Seeing the person he had been searching for so long now standing before him, the elder felt no joy whatsoever. After all, he was currently the strongest fighter remaining in the Ji family, and the young man before him wouldn't have come without confidence. Perfect timing. I've been searching for you for so many days, and you've actually delivered yourself to my doorstep. I'm looking for a worthy opponent. Don't think you're the only one with an extraordinary phenomenon. Ji Haoiu's eyes gleamed as he watched Bai Ye unleash his own extraordinary phenomenon without hesitation. The next moment, in the blood-red world, a bright moon slowly rose, plunging the environment into darkness, with only the moon shining. But in Ji Haoyu's incredulous gaze, that moon was actually a scarlet blood moon, shimmering with an eerie and ominous light. His extraordinary phenomenon of the moon rising over the sea was completely suppressed, stained with the opponent's color. Seeing this, the elder's heart finally died. It was all over, they'd cornered his stronghold. He was doomed. You said you wanted to fight me in a duel. Bai Ye looked at Ji Haoyu with amusement. Even your strange phenomenon was suppressed by me. What other tricks do you have up your sleeve? He truly lived up to his reputation as the #1 madman who dared to clash with emperor-level weapons at the 4th extreme realm and even vie for them. HMPH. A strange phenomenon doesn't represent everything, Ji Haoyu retorted defiantly. Purple light flashed in her eyes, and the blood moon in the sky instantly shone towards Bai Ye. The crimson moonlight pierced through everything, turning everything to ashes. An elder at the 3rd level of the dragon transformation realm beside her conjured a golden bell and hurled it at Bai Ye. Meanwhile, Ji Haoyu's body glowed, her Yuanling body releasing surging spiritual energy to empower the two. The other members of the Ji family above the 4th extreme realm also displayed their unique abilities, attacking Bai Ye in various ways. In an instant, the ferocity was overwhelming. Within Bai Ye's strange phenomenon, waves surged, seemingly on the verge of being torn apart. Seeing this, Bai Ye's eyes flashed with a fierce light. He stretched out his right hand, unleashing wisps of terrifying spatial energy that annihilated everything it touched. Void handprint, where did you learn that? The Ji family elder exclaimed in shock. Isn't this something you learn just by looking at it? Bai Ye said casually. Under Ji Haoyu's horrified gaze, the blood moon in the sky shone with terrifying light, illuminating the Ji family members. Amid screams, countless disciples were pierced by the blood moon, turning into part of the sea of blood. Haoyu, what are you doing? The elder cried out in shock and anger, unable to believe such a thing had happened. It wasn't me. In this space, my phenomenon was not only suppressed, but also held hostage, Haoyu roared. He tried to withdraw his phenomenon, but it was too late. The blood moon in the sky no longer obeyed his commands, its crimson moonlight piercing through each and every member of the clan. Ah, you scoundrel, prepare to die. Seeing his clansmen perish one by one, Ji Haoyu was enraged. His imposing figure transformed into a streak of light as he charged towards Bai Ye. But before he even reached him, a raging sea of blood enveloped him, and countless corpses attacked him in the blink of an eye. Brother Haoyu, seeing Haoyu trapped in the sea of blood, Ji Haoyu panicked. The next moment, a figure blocked her path. Instead of worrying about him, you should worry about yourself, Bai Ye said, staring at the girl before him with a smile. You, what do you want to do? Let me tell you, I am. Ji Haoyu took a few steps back, her bright eyes glaring at Bai Ye, but the next moment, Bai Ye swept her up and hoisted her over his shoulder. I happen to need someone to serve me. As the little moon of the Ji family, you're barely usable. Bai Ye laughed heartily, directly sealing the struggling Ji Haoyu's cultivation. Then, grabbing the delicate body of the powerless girl, he carried her like a sack of potatoes, laughing wildly as he flew away into the distance. The Ji family was just the first stop, there were still many places to go. They had to seize this opportunity to fleece him, gathering 10 or 8 holy maidens. Ziyu, in the sea of blood, Ji Haoyu, constantly battling the endless stream of corpses, roared with furious eyes. But no matter how angry he was, he couldn't break through the sea of blood and could only watch helplessly as Bai Ye's figure flew away. Only after Bai Ye disappeared did Ji Haoyu barely manage to break through the blood sea phenomenon with the help of the elders. Looking at the world that had regained its clear blue sky, the devastated buildings, countless corpses, and bewildered clansmen, a roar erupted from Ji Haoyu's mouth. He was about to explode with rage. Quickly inform father that we were attacked and suffered heavy losses, and that Ziyu has been kidnapped by that thief Bai Ye, Ji Haoyu roared, his eyes bloodshot. In fact, he didn't need to inform him, because in the Ji family territory, the soul lamps of countless disciples outside had gone out at night, directly alarming the entire family. And it wasn't just here. Bai Ye, who had just left the Ji family, had already moved on to the stronghold of the Yaochi Holy Land. As the strange phenomena unfolded, an arrogant and evil voice echoed all around, "He. Yaochi didn't even send anyone to hunt me down? You're truly courting death?" These words left Ji Haoyu, who was perched on his shoulder, speechless. So, not hunting you down isn't allowed? You're just looking for trouble. Chapter 332 Serving the young master as he undressed. On the grounds of the Yaochi Holy Land, a sea of blood surged. Bai Ye stood atop the sea of blood, his black hair dancing wildly, his fingers sweeping across the entire area, utterly arrogant and unrestrained. Of course, the girl carrying him on his shoulder was thinking something completely different from Bai Ye's. She simply felt that today was utterly terrible. Below, the women of Yaochi were filled with astonishment. The Yaochi Holy Land had actually been attacked one day. Among them, the Yaochi Holy Maiden, dressed in a flawless white gown that trailed on the ground, seemed to be walking on clouds with every step, like a celestial flower from the moon palace, exuding an otherworldly aura. Her face was gently shrouded in a hazy ethereal mist, like a veil, obscuring her entire appearance, yet this mystery only added to her allure. The Holy Maiden of Yaochi glanced at the girl on Bai Ye's shoulder and said softly, "Fellow Taoist Bai, our Yaochi Holy Land has always been peaceful and has never sent anyone to hunt you down. Why are you pursuing us so relentlessly this time?" "Alright, I'm in a hurry and don't want to argue with you." Bai Ye tightened his grip on the girl's arm. "The strong should be respected, and heroes should dare to be the first. Our ancestor is short of a few maidens. You Yaochi have many fairies and holy maidens, and I've taken a liking to you. I've already been to the Ji family. Next, it won't just be you, but also the Holy Maiden of Yao Guang. Adding this little girl as an extra will perfectly satisfy our ancestors' wishes." Bai Ye stated his thoughts without hesitation, shocking the Yaochi women below. "Beast," Ziyu on his shoulder muttered, but no one paid her any attention. "Now, come into our ancestors' hands," Bai Ye chuckled evilly, pressing his enormous, sky-covering hand down towards the Holy Maiden of Yaochi below. As the colossal hand pressed down, an overwhelming force emanated from afar, causing the ground tens or even hundreds of miles below to sink violently due to the escalating air pressure. The Holy Maiden of Yaochi sighed softly, her hand waving, countless chains lashing towards the sky. The golden chains expanded in the wind, quickly binding Bai Ye's hand, which was composed of pure energy, but shattered in an instant. With your current strength, unless you can instantly advance to the dragon transformation realm, you might be able to put up a fight. Otherwise, just surrender obediently, saving your ancestors some effort, Bai Ye said, his colossal hand arriving instantly, mimicking the chains that bound the Holy Maiden of Yaochi with a returning armor binding technique. Boom, in the blink of an eye, the colossal hand, encompassing tens of kilometers, descended, leaving a massive handprint tens of feet deep beneath. All buildings, floor tiles, glazed tiles, and ornaments were pulverized under this single blow, the billowing dust burying everything. "This isn't fair. Why is everyone alright?" Carried on her shoulder, Jizai looked down at the scene in the dust and smoke. These Yaochi female disciples were only unconscious. Aside from their tattered clothes and exposed skin, none of them were dead. Compared to the sea of blood at her own home, Jizai was furious, gritting her teeth and glaring at Bai Ye. "You vicious woman. You're just watching the drama unfold, trying to make me commit more murder," Bai Ye declared righteously. "I'm the protagonist, the hero. Don't you understand? I think you're just driven by lust," Jizai retorted. "If you weren't lustful, you'd be buried under the rubble with those Ji family members long ago. It seems you're capable of saving lives." Bai Ye flicked the girl's forehead, making her eyes well up with tears. As they spoke, the Yaochi saintess, bound like a dumpling, was brought before them by chains. Even the most serene young girl blushed crimson at this shameful method of binding, angrily protesting, "Fellow Taoist Bai, could you change the way you're bound? It's really indecent." "That makes sense. I'm going to take you to visit some other holy lands and families later. This binding is too squalid, it'll corrupt the children," Bai Ye muttered, much to the two girls' shock. This humiliating situation, having to go through the motions in front of other powerful forces, they didn't want this. But the two girls' protests were no match for Bai Ye. After changing the binding position of the Yaochi saintess to a more normal one, Bai Ye withdrew his supernatural phenomenon and headed to the next location. In the distance, within the Azure Emperor's tomb, while the holy lords of various powerful forces were still fighting each other for the treasures within, they were completely unaware that Bai Ye had emptied their logistics. It was like a husband working late into the night at the company to support his family while his wife was jogging at home. Throughout the day, Bai Ye directly visited the temporary strongholds of various powerful forces within the Yan Kingdom. the Ji family, Yao Guang, Yao Qi, Zhang family, Din. Countless disciples were routed, and those they disliked, like Zhang Yijin, were killed outright before moving on to the next faction. Above the Azure Emperor's tomb, various colored lights shone brightly, and even a slight energy fluctuation could pulverize a mountain. These powerful factions were going to great lengths for what lay within the Azure Emperor's tomb. Just as the situation reached its climax, a slightly disheveled shout came from the direction of the fighting. "Stop fighting. You've fallen into a trap." The Ji family's holy lord recognized the voice and turned to see his seventh brother, his hair disheveled, looking at him in utter disarray. "Hey Ayu, what happened?" The Ji family's holy lord disengaged from the battlefield in a rainbow form and asked with concern. Bai Ye took advantage of the internal weakness to attack the various outposts, and Zai was also kidnapped by him, Ji Hao Ayu hurriedly reported. Upon hearing this, the sharp fluctuations in the sky abruptly stopped, and the next moment, the light exploded. Most of the powerful clans and Holy Land ceased fighting and rushed back to their own strongholds, only to find devastation everywhere, with corpses lying all around. "Ah! Bai Ye, you scoundrel, I will never forgive you." Roars filled the air as the holy lords, each one enraged, stared at their destroyed strongholds with eyes that seemed to spit fire. Meanwhile, in a secluded mountain where no one could find him, Bai Ye, having finished all this, lay lazily on a soft bed. Looking at the three beautiful women he had captured, a slight smile appeared on his lips as he said, "All right, serve your ancestor your clothes and meal." Seeing the young man so relaxed after storming several powerful forces, Yao Zai and the other two women couldn't contain their anger. "Villain, traitor, lecher." Xiao, Ji Zaiyu cursed viciously in her heart. But with her magic power suppressed, she couldn't even defeat a slightly stronger life spring cultivator. "What are you standing there for? Take it off." Looking at the frozen girl in front of him, Bai Ye spread his hands and said, "Hurry up and help the young master undress. I'd rather die than serve you, you traitor." Yao Zai wanted to say, but then she could only watch helplessly as she, who had lost her cultivation, was controlled and walked toward Bai Ye. Chapter 333. He's been pulled into a big cart. 3 days and 2 nights after the opening of the Azure Emperor's tomb, Bai Ye, having finished his exercise, gently swirled the teacup in his hand. Steam rose slowly from the tea, and after blowing on it, Bai Ye took a small sip. After finishing, looking at the little girl staring at him with disdain, Bai Ye, in his wise man mode, proactively asked, "Have you heard of the college effect?" "What's that?" Ji Zaiyu asked irritably. But Bai Ye didn't explain, only subtly pointing to the teacup in front of him. The girl could only reluctantly refill the cup. Research has found that most mammals, even with their original mate nearby, will not engage in sexual activity for a period of time after mating. However, if a male animal is given a new female estrus partner after mating, its refractory period is greatly shortened, and it may even immediately resume mating behavior, Bai Ye explained, causing the girl's eyes to widen. "Is that why you lasted 2 days and 2 nights? Of course, it's like eating different flavored chocolates. After finishing one, seeing another one next to it makes you want to try it, even if you're not hungry." Ji Zaiyu didn't know what Bai Ye meant by chocolate or Coolidge, but that didn't stop her from labeling the boy in front of her as a silver beast. After all, the two women sleeping inside the cave had proven her right. After helping them change, Bai Ye asked if they wanted to play a forced game. After receiving an unequivocal refusal, the game still started. Fortunately, for some reason, she didn't suffer the same fate as the other two women. Zaiyu felt somewhat dissatisfied about this. Was she inferior to the two? But while dissatisfied, she was also afraid, worried that if she asked, she would end up like the two women, which would be too terrible. She could only try her best to pretend to be confused to cover it up. "I find that you are a completely useless maid," Bai Ye suddenly said. "Those two can warm the bed, but you can't do anything. If this continues, I will throw you to practice the human-beast burial goo." "How am I useless? Didn't I make tea for you?" Ji Zaiyu protested softly. Bai Ye squinted at her. "Besides making tea, what else can you do?" "I know a little about music, chess, calligraphy, and painting," Ji Zaiyu said proudly. After all, she was a young lady from a prominent family, and she knew some of the necessary skills. "What about cooking?" Bai Ye asked. He still longed for a cook. "I can't. Everyone at home serves me. If you are not satisfied, you might as well let me go. I will find you 100 people who can cook tomorrow, As Ji Ziyu spoke, she could hear the young man in front of her click his tongue in disdain. Instantly, Ji Ziyu felt her anger burning, but being under someone else's roof, she could only suppress it. The next moment, a stack of thick books was placed in front of the girl, all of them related to cooking. Since you can't do it, you should at least be able to do something. I don't keep idle people around. I've brought you back so you can be of some value, Bai Ye said, placing his hand on the books in front of him. Study these things carefully. I'll test you properly in a month. If you fail, I haven't thought of a punishment yet. We'll talk about it later, the girl complained dejectedly, but then she saw the boy in front of her stand up from his chair. Startled, she hurriedly nodded and said, Okay, I'll do anything. Bai Ye glanced at her lightly and walked out of the cave. Behind him, Ji Ziyu hurriedly asked, Where are you going? To go play with your father and the others. They must be furious outside after you've been gone for so long. Bai Ye didn't stop walking and casually said, Consider it a walk to digest after exercise. Even without Bai Ye saying it, just seeing her shoulder as several major forces were destroyed made her realize how serious things were outside. But for Bai Ye, it was all the same. After all, possessing a magic technique to extend lifespan was already a crime, and all forces would hunt him down. Raping a few holy maidens wouldn't even be considered a bonus. Seeing the cave entrance close, Ji Ziyu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Ignoring the books piled on the table, she headed deeper into the cave. Inside, there was a 5-meter-long, soft bed, where two women of unparalleled beauty lay fast asleep. Like Sleeping Beauty, the women's faces held a hint of spring in their eyes, and beads of sweat clung to their skin, creating a somewhat alluring atmosphere. Thank goodness I didn't become like that, Ji Ziyu said thankfully, but her expression froze the next moment. She sensed that the girl's cultivation, though sealed, had increased countless times. In just 2 days, she had gone from the initial stage of the 4 extremes to the dragon transformation realm. Compared to her own current Dao Palace cultivation, Ji Ziyu was stunned, unable to comprehend how someone who was perfectly fine could have broken through to the dragon transformation realm. In fact, she should be thankful that the two women didn't undergo a tribulation during their breakthrough, otherwise, the scene would have been quite awkward. Looking back, Bai Ye hadn't gained anything from these past 2 days except for the sheer pleasure. Instead, the two women had essentially drained his yin energy for 2 days. Bai Ye's unparalleled talent was like a vast ocean, even the slightest leakage was a supreme elixir. Even though the two women desperately absorbed the essence from this ocean, for Bai Ye, it was nothing. He simply absorbed it all and returned to normal. It was only because most of Bai Ye's strength was sealed that, otherwise, with his surging blood energy, 2 days of training would have been enough to raise them to at least the Saint Realm. Aside from the initial resistance, the two women had been the ones in control throughout these 2 days, with Bai Ye even briefly at a disadvantage, being forcibly pulled along. At this moment, the two women appeared to be asleep, but they were actually absorbing the massive amount of essence Bai Ye had provided. When they awoke, they would be surprised to find that they had unknowingly broken through to the dragon transformation stage and had undergone a significant transformation in their cultivation talent. But it would probably be several days before all of this was over. An hour later, the cave gate burst open with a bang, and Bai Ye returned with a grim expression. What's wrong? Ji Ziyu asked softly. I'm injured. Bai Ye raised his right hand, his face dark. No, in Ji Ziyu's eyes, Bai Ye's hand was still as clean and beautiful as jade, so beautiful that she was somewhat envious. Of course you can't see it, Bai Ye said irritably, although the wound healed in 0.04 seconds, without even bleeding. I'm still injured. Is there something wrong? It's just an injury, and it's already healed, Ziyu asked curiously. Do you think I'm like you NPCs? My no damage clear record is gone, Bai Ye said through gritted teeth. Chapter 334 White Knight's Spinal Cord Sword. A flawless victory? Ji Ziyu asked doubtfully. Bai Ye didn't answer Ji Ziyu's question, but stared at his palm and muttered to himself, I was just joking. Why did you take it so seriously? It's just killing a few hundred cultivators, stealing 2 saintesses and a longevity method. Is it really that big of a deal? Just now, he, who was supposed to be using his micromanagement skills to the extreme, had a small accident and was approached by an elder from the first level of the immortal platform. As a result, he accidentally cut himself during the fight. As he spoke, Bai Ye beckoned to Ziyu. Let's go. We have work to do. What work? Xiaoyu suddenly had a bad feeling. Relocation, of course, Bai Ye said calmly, his tone revealing neither joy nor anger. We've been here for a few days, now we can move to a different place. Where to? I remember the old man who injured me said his surname was Wang before he died, Bai Ye said calmly. The Wang family of Beiwen. Upon hearing the name Wang, Ji Xiaoyu subconsciously thought of this aristocratic family. Bai Ye slowly shook his head and said, I don't know, but it doesn't matter, the new home is set there. His Ji Xiaoyu subconsciously gasped softly, you're going to cause trouble for the Wang family? Just the two of us, that's enough, Bai Ye said calmly, go wake them up. After I take down the Wang family, I'm too lazy to come back, but, they're still advancing in their cultivation, Ji Xiaoyu reminded him softly. If they weren't disturbed, they might be able to advance to the second or even third level of the dragon transformation realm after they've fully digested it. As cultivators, she naturally knew how much time this would reduce their arduous cultivation, so she didn't want to interrupt. It's just a mere essence. Next time, I'll give them a pound, enough to fill them up. Saying this, Bai Ye turned to look at the girl, his eyes somewhat unfriendly, and said, also, my thoughts are the most important. When I give an order, I don't want you to hesitate. Don't forget your current status. I know, don't be so fierce. Ji Xiaoyu shrank back in fright and hurriedly ran to wake the two girls. After the girl had gone, Bai Ye summoned a 6-foot-long, 1-foot-wide, pitch-black box with a wave of his hand. The entire box was incredibly ancient, forged from cold, dark iron, emanating an eerie aura, as if sealing away some kind of demon. I originally planned to get along with you as an ordinary cultivator, but all I got in return was harm. Since the record of no injury has disappeared, I'm not pretending anymore. I'm laying my cards on the table, Bai Ye said, directly opening the pitch-black iron box. Inside Bai Ye's box, a sharp white bone sword lay quietly, incomparably sharp. The sword didn't possess any divine light or immortal aura, but in terms of potential, it was no less than, and perhaps even far stronger than, imperial weapons and immortal artifacts. The sword's entire body flowed with a faint, almost transparent, ghostly blue luster, like the most distant star in the night sky condensed, exuding both a bone-chilling coldness and containing an indescribable life rhythm. At this moment, Ji Xiaoyu emerged with Yao Guang and the holy maiden of Yaoqi. Both women wore faint blushes and a hint of annoyance, having been forcibly pushed aside, but the surprise brought on by their improved cultivation levels more than compensated for this. Thinking back to yesterday when Bai Ye invited them to a forced game and refused, then smiled and said, if you agreed, what kind of forced game would it be? They wanted nothing more than to devour Bai Ye alive. Having just emerged from the depths of the cave, they noticed the white bone sword contained in the iron box in Bai Ye's hand. Just looking at it made their eyes feel like they were being pricked by needles. What is this? Ji Xiaoyu rubbed her eyes, feeling incredibly sore. I call it Bai Ye's neck marrow sword. Bai Ye reached into the black box and took out the bone sword. It felt incredibly warm to the touch, as if one could feel the life force within it. Bai Ye. Neck marrow sword, the three subconsciously murmured the word, then their pupils suddenly contracted. Ji Xiaoyu stammered, this, it can't be yours. That's right, it was extracted and refined from my own spine and lumbar vertebrae, Bai Ye said frankly. For a moment, seeing Bai Ye holding his own spinal cord sword, the three women felt a chill run down their spines. Who in their right mind would use their own spinal cord to forge a weapon? Every cultivator in the Sea of Wheels secret realm can forge a weapon at each of the 4 realms, Bitter Sea, Life Spring, Divine Bridge, and Other Shore. This Bai Ye spinal cord sword was Bai Ye's weapon, purely made from his own bones. Although seemingly separate, it still possessed a life force. It was a living weapon. Some time ago, he deliberately logged out of the game for a period, extracting his spine from its prime in reality, achieving a quasi-emperor level of destructive power with only initial refinement. Furthermore, this weapon possessed another effect. Because it was a weapon containing life force, not an inanimate object, it had the characteristic of infinitely increasing power. Each strike was definitely stronger than the last. Compared to this condition, other abilities such as automatic repair and indestructibility are merely bonuses. Let's go, Bai Ye said calmly, gripping his weapon. Follow me to the Yen Kingdom's stronghold. Anyone who dares to obstruct me on the way, kill half and spare the other half. With that, Bai Ye lightly brandished his white bone sword. In an instant, terrifying and sharp sword energy pierced through the cave, its length unknown, stretching for millions of miles, announcing the birth of a demon lord to the entire Beidao region. In the Yen Kingdom, the Holy Lord of Yao Guang sat in his rocking chair, his heart filled with worry for the safety of the abducted holy maiden Yao Zai. She had been missing for 3 days. With Yao Zai's beauty, if Bai Ye had acted any faster, she might already be pregnant. He had already ordered the Holy Land to search with all their might, but the elders had just told him that Bai Ye had recently met with an elder of the Bihun royal family and killed him after several rounds of combat. Only a few days have passed, and he's gone from a minor cultivator who needed several moves to defeat a Dao Palace cultivator to someone who can kill a first-level immortal platform elder. Now that he dares to kill a first-level immortal platform cultivator, he doesn't even dare to think about killing a holy lord next. At this moment, not only him, but all the male disciples of the Yao Guang Holy Land are wailing, lamenting that their fairy-like holy maiden has fallen into Bai Ye's hands. In the blink of an eye, a sharp sword light swept past, piercing through his body. Without even a moment's hesitation, half of his body was blasted in two from the very center. One half of his body turned into a sky full of light, while the other half, with endless astonishment in its eyes, covered its intact cheek, not understanding what had happened. "Who ambushed me?" the Yao Guang Holy Lord exclaimed angrily. He was just sitting at home when disaster struck from the sky. Half of his body was directly shattered by the sword energy. Looking in the direction of the sword energy, one could see that the sword energy, spanning tens of thousands of miles, swept across the horizon, tore apart the atmosphere of the ancient Big Dipper star, and headed towards the cosmos, destroying countless stars along the way. Chapter 335 Randomly Killing Bystanders. At this moment, the entire Big Dipper constellation was alarmed by Bai Ye's actions. Even a great sage-level being capable of destroying an ancient life-bearing star was enough, let alone the power of the quasi-emperor weapon in Bai Ye's hand, which could infinitely grow stronger. It was only thanks to the unique nature of the Big Dipper ancient star that it was able to survive, otherwise, it would likely have been cleaved in two by this single strike. The enormous sword energy, measured in tens of millions of miles, caused the stars to tremble when it was swung, visible to everyone on the ancient star. Bai Ye, at the starting point, remained utterly cold, turning to the three women who were astonished by the sheer power of his sword energy, and said, "Follow me." As he spoke, Bai Ye waved his hand, releasing the seals on their cultivation, and headed towards the Wang family. The women exchanged glances, their eyes filled with bitterness, showing no joy at having their cultivation removed. They realized that with the strength Bai Ye was currently displaying, it seemed they could never escape this power. This was a terror they had never witnessed before. It was the first time they had seen a weapon of this level unleash its power, leaving an indelible impression on their minds. If Bai Ye had revealed such combat power earlier, and had been more humble, their faction would probably have ignored their objections and sent them to Bai Ye to warm his bed. "Damn it, we'll be under Bai Ye's clutches forever from now on," Ji Ziyu lamented inwardly. At this moment, countless cultivators who had been watching from afar because of the commotion suddenly brightened their eyes, staring at Bai Ye and shouting, "Look, that's Bai Ye. Bai Ye is out, grab him quickly, don't let him escape. Grab him and you'll find the secret to immortality." The next moment, a terrifying swarm of cultivators, like locusts, rushed towards them, their eyes filled with greed. It was a thirst for immortality. Bai Ye didn't waste any words. He swung his ancient sword fiercely, as if millions of suns were shining brightly at the same time. The next moment, amidst the terrible screams, everyone present was cleaved in two. One half of their bodies turned into particles smaller than dust, while the other half gushed blood uncontrollably. Unlike the previous sword strike that randomly cleaved a Saint Lord, this time Bai Ye's attack carried a trace of the rules of destruction. The pure power of the rules, like a bone-deep infection, prevented the cultivators before him from healing. As their flesh churned, their life force was slowly extinguished. The once mighty cultivators now fell to the ground like locusts with broken wings, struggling in agony. "Is this what you meant by killing half?" Yao Zai's lips twitched slightly. These cultivators before her were clearly beyond saving, destined to perish in agony. "That's right, destroy half of them vertically," Bai Ye said matter-of-factly. Anyone who dared offend him would have their egg yolk shattered, and even an earthworm would be sliced in half vertically. At this moment, the cultivators who hadn't yet advanced all stood frozen in place, watching from afar. They hadn't connected Bai Ye with the owner of that sword energy before. After all, they'd been hunted for so many days. If he truly possessed such power, why hadn't he used it sooner? Unfortunately, they had no idea Bai Ye was playing games. Now that his unscathed record was broken, Bai Ye, having lost interest, chose to flip the table. In the distance, the holy lords who had brought their imperial weapons instinctively tightened their grip on them, utterly terrified by Bai Ye. Those forces that hadn't brought their imperial weapons, or rather, didn't possess any at all, felt utterly insecure, as if they were naked before Bai Ye. After all, in the entire Beidou region, apart from a few exceptional individuals, most holy lords hadn't even reached the Dao-severing stage. They were truly at the point where a single sword strike from Bai Ye would be fatal. Seeing Bai Ye wielding his ancient sword, these cultivators who hadn't yet stepped forward gave a bitter smile, wanting to mediate, but they were met with yet another sword strike from Bai Ye. A blinding light erupted, impossible to look at. It drew countless curses. "Damn it, you motherfucker, you scoundrel." In just an instant, thousands more cultivators were shattered in two by Bai Ye's sword energy, terrifying the remaining cultivators so much that they dared not approach. They had no idea what kind of divine metal Bai Ye had used, and they hadn't even made a move, so why were they attacking? But for Bai Ye, these people's lives were merely a means for him to vent his anger. He could randomly pick a few thousand passing cultivators to kill, daring to appear when he was angry was courting death. Among the crowd, Yao Guang, who had repaired half of her body, and the Holy Lord of Yaoqi stared intently at the two women behind Bai Ye. In their eyes, the two who had suffered so much torment were now displaying cultivation levels of the dragon transformation realm. What kind of immortal medicine had they taken? The Ji family had had mixed feelings, looking at Ji Ziyu with exasperation. Others have already transformed into dragons, and you've been wandering around the Dao Palace for the past 3 days? What are you doing? Although shocked, they didn't dare to step forward. Just by observing from the side, they could see that the bone sword in Bai Ye's hand was not restrained in the slightest. Even if they possessed imperial weapons, after a full-force attack, regardless of the opponent's condition, they, who hadn't even reached the saint level, were definitely doomed, and a large part of the entire Beidou ancient star would probably be shattered. Seeing that Bai Ye's mental state was off, even a dog passing by would likely get a severe beating. No Holy Land dared to approach him, risking the death of their entire family. They could only watch from afar, wondering what Bai Ye's purpose was. He swept through the crowds, casually dispatching hundreds of people across vast distances with a single sword strike if he displeased them, paying particular attention to those who had been hunting him down in recent days. After all, the game was over. The focus was now on post-match reckoning. Unstoppable and unapproachable, Bai Ye's figure gracefully flew over the gathering places of various holy lands. Each place he passed brought a sense of relief to the families, thankful that this weapon of mass destruction hadn't targeted them. Flying along, under the tense gazes of all the onlookers, Bai Ye slowly landed on the territory of the Bianwang family. It's over, this was the thought in the minds of the Bianwang family members below. Seeing Bai Ye's figure descending slowly, bone sword in hand, the Wang family head, Wang Changqin, proactively went to greet him. Though his heart ached, he forced a smile and said, "Truly, heroes emerge from among the young. Senior Bai Ye's arrival at the Wang family today is truly an honor." Whoosh, without the slightest hesitation, Bai Ye swung his ancient sword at the approaching Wang family patriarch. In an instant, this supreme expert was utterly unable to offer any resistance, and was cleaved in two halves. Patriarch, seeing Wang Changqin now severed at the waist, the entire Wang family gasped in shock, their blood boiling, wishing they could fight Bai Ye to the death. "You scoundrel, whoosh, give me back my patriarch's life, whoosh, damn it, whoosh." Even the onlookers felt a chill run down their spines. This seemingly ethereal young man before them hadn't uttered a single word, yet he hadn't given anyone else the right to speak. Before him, in the entire Wang family, anyone who dared to speak would die. Chapter 336 Go away half, keep half. Cold and silent, Bai Ye stood atop the Yan Kingdom's stronghold. After slicing Wang Changqin in half at the waist, every person who spoke afterward was cleaved in two. Even the cicadas in the Wang family mansion chirped unconsciously twice, only to be split in half by Bai Ye's bone sword. In just a few seconds, the entire mansion fell into utter silence. This didn't mean Bai Ye had slaughtered the entire Wang family, it simply meant no one dared to speak. Children tried to scream in fear, but their parents covered their mouths tightly, allowing them to express their emotions only through trembling bodies. The onlookers were also filled with apprehension, mourning the tragedy that had befallen the Wang family. The white bricks of the ground were now stained with blood. The stench of blood permeated the surviving halves of the Wang family members, creating a scene of utter carnage, like a hellish battlefield, inspiring extreme terror, as if a horror movie had come to life. Why is no one speaking? Do they not like to talk? Looking down at the entire palace, Bai Ye casually shrugged and asked, as if he were a passerby who had nothing to do with it. But even Ji Zi'er and the other two behind Bai Ye fell silent due to the heavy and murderous atmosphere. How tragic. At this moment, looking at the bloody smell rising from the Wang family, an elder from the Holy Land who had just entered the first level of the immortal platform couldn't help but sigh. Hearing his evaluation, the other cultivators around him nodded in agreement. But these words sounded different to Bai Ye. His body, which had been paused, swayed slightly, and his head turned in the direction from which the voice came. With just one glance, the person in that direction felt his blood run cold from head to toe. "Hey, I told you to speak, and you actually did," Bai Ye said in surprise. He didn't expect that anyone would actually dare to talk back while he was killing people. As soon as he finished speaking, a stream of light full of killing intent swept out, directly splitting the elder who had spoken in two, and killing several innocent passers-by in the process. "Li," someone tried to speak, but was immediately silenced by the Holy Lord behind them. The Holy Lord of that sect gently shook his head at the other elders around him, who were filled with rage, signaling them not to make a pointless sacrifice. The entire sect combined wouldn't be enough to withstand a single sword strike from the other side. Letting you watch without killing you is already my mercy. You actually think you're the bosses, daring to nitpick my actions, Bai Ye spoke, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the leaders of the Ji and Zhang families, who wielded emperor-level weapons, the warning in his eyes unmistakable. If you're unhappy, why don't you make a move, you cowards? No need to take the initiative, just utter a sound and I'll take it as your agreement. This madman, the Holy Lords cursed inwardly. They knew Bai Ye was targeting them, but when faced with his gaze, they chose to turn their heads away in submission. To step forward now would be gambling with the lives of their entire clans, betting that Bai Ye was also afraid of death and wouldn't engage in a weapon clash. But how could they afford to gamble that? Let alone himself, if any other forces wielding imperial weapons were to intervene, he would have to stop them. The current situation is roughly equivalent to a group of ordinary people gathered together, each holding the detonation button for a nuclear bomb. Their imperial weapons are like the Tsar Bomba, while Bai Ye's quasi-imperial weapon is like the little boy. The yield difference is incomparable. But even with such a vast difference in yield, facing a nuclear bomb, whoever detonates it will kill everyone around them. Among this group of ordinary people, there's a madman like Bai Ye who, knowing others also possess nuclear weapons, still chose to overturn the table and offend everyone. In this zero-sum game, these self-proclaimed rational individuals can only grit their teeth and accept it. If it's a catastrophe of annihilation, they have the confidence to perish together. But if they gamble their entire family's fortune because of a street urchin like Bai Ye asking, "What are you looking at?" they would have no face to meet the late emperor after death. However, they should be thankful they weren't reckless, otherwise, the clash of imperial weapons would have forced Bai Ye to unleash his second form, a second form capable of tearing apart imperial weapons. Seeing that no one answered when he spoke, Bai Ye withdrew his gaze. Focusing his attention on the Wang family members before him, noticing their tense expressions, Bai Ye smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Don't be nervous, I'm not a bad person, I won't eat you." "You're not only a bad person, you're a fucking madman," everyone around cursed inwardly. Bai Ye sheathed his bone sword, channeling his spiritual energy to create the image of an old man before him, and said to the Wang family members, "Hey, do you know this guy? He looks so familiar." Looking at the figure Bai Ye had created, the members of the Northern Plains Wang family muttered to themselves. Wasn't this portrait their family elder? But due to Bai Ye's earlier intimidation, they didn't know whether to speak or not. "Speak. Are you mute? I'm asking you a question," Bai Ye shouted, his words causing the entire Wang family to tremble in fear. "Yes, he was our clan elder, but you killed him not long ago," an elder from the clan replied. "So it really is someone from your area. Looks like I didn't make a mistake." Bai Ye nodded slightly, causing those around him to curse inwardly. Coming directly to the Wang family without confirming the person, killing countless heads, their bloodlust was too extreme. Since I didn't make a mistake, then prepare to die. Bai Ye stood calmly before the Wang family's gate, his tone nonchalant. The Wang family elder's lips twitched, a murderous intent rising within him, wanting to fight Bai Ye. But when he saw the bone sword in Bai Ye's hand, his body immediately went cold. What? Want to try fighting me? Bai Ye found it amusing. This guy, whose entire clan's resources were beyond even a great sage's, what could he possibly use to fight him? This old man dares not, the clan elder sighed. I beg you, senior, to forgive my Wang family. Of course, I'm not a bad person. We agreed on half and half. Bai Ye's lips curled up. The entire Wang family, the whole clan, half will go, half will stay. As for the selection, you can choose, half mortals, half those in the Sea of Wheels, half those in the Dao Palace, half those who have transformed into dragons, and half those in the immortal platform. Bai Ye shook his head. Quickly give me a detailed list. The remaining half will then submit to me. Hearing that half could be kept, the clan elder breathed a sigh of relief. At least it was an acceptable result compared to the entire clan dying. By the way, I've already killed the original patriarch, Bai Ye suddenly said. Then I'll choose a new patriarch for you. We will obey your orders, senior, the entire Wang family said in extremely low voices. Oh, then this one will do. As Bai Ye spoke, he casually pointed at a beautiful, curvaceous, and voluptuous young woman holding a white dog. Chapter 337 The Ultimate Torture King. The clan elder was stunned when he saw the person Bai Ye pointed to. Not only him, but everyone around who recognized the woman was dumbfounded. This woman wasn't even considered a member of the Wang family. At best, she was just a high-ranking maidservant working for the Wang family. The dog the girl was holding was only serving one of the Wang family's ladies. The girl hadn't even reached the Dao Palace realm. They couldn't understand why Bai Ye would choose such a woman to be the head of the Wang family. But then, looking at the woman's beautiful face and curvaceous figure, and thinking of Ji Zhao, Yao Zai, and the Yaoqi saintess who had been abducted by Bai Ye, they suddenly understood Bai Ye's purpose. What an absurd lecture, seeing Bai Ye's actions, letting a woman who wasn't at the Dao Palace realm but was still quite attractive manage the Wang family and become its head. Everyone gritted their teeth, feeling insulted. Moreover, they felt that Bai Ye's main purpose wasn't to insult the Wang family, but simply lust. But they had no choice, they had to survive. For the sake of the Wang family's continuation, the elders of the Wang family could only lower their heads. We understand. From today onwards, she is the head of the Wang family. On the other side, the woman pointed at Bai Ye trembled with excitement. She never imagined that such a tremendous opportunity would come her way. Overjoyed, she dropped the white dog she was carrying and ran to Bai Ye, kneeling deeply. Thank you, sir. Thank you for making me the head of the Wang family. From now on, I will follow your lead, the woman said excitedly, kowtowing repeatedly to Bai Ye, her breasts trembling. At this moment, even if Bai Ye asked her to serve him in bed, she would probably agree without hesitation. This made Ji Zhao, standing behind Bai Ye, feel incredulous, wondering if Bai Ye was truly hungry to be lustful towards such a woman. Even if Bai Ye made a move on her, although she would be unwilling, she would have to admit that Bai Ye's taste was not flawed. But as for someone like this, well, the three women didn't know how to evaluate it. The woman's behavior only disgusted the Wang family. They had several elders at the Immortal Ascension realm, yet they were to be ruled by such trash, barely reaching the Dao Palace realm. But the next moment, to everyone's surprise, Bai Ye kicked the woman away without hesitation. No, who are you, auntie? Bai Ye said with disdain, and why did you throw out my chosen Wang family head? Bai Ye's sudden action stunned everyone. So this woman wasn't a Wang family head? Then who is the real Wang family head? Woof 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 woof. At this moment, the snow-white jade dog that had just been thrown by the woman landed and let out a series of startled barks, pulling everyone back to reality. Wait? Bai Ye just asked that woman why she threw out the Wang family head. No way. At this moment, the Wang family members, Ji Zhao, Yao Zai, the Yaoqi saintess, the Ji family, the Zheng family, the Yaoguang Holy Land, almost everyone stared at Bai Ye with disbelief, unable to comprehend it, thinking he had truly gone mad. Let a dog be the head of the Wang family. Under everyone's gaze, Bai Ye strode towards the snow-white jade dog. Each step felt like trampling on the Wang family's dignity, making their hearts bleed. Reaching the barking white dog, Bai Ye gently squatted down and said, Stop barking. From now on, you're the head of the Wang family. You need to have some dignity." As he spoke, Bai Ye placed his hand on the dog's head, altering its soul and imprinting some basic common sense into the dog's brain. Simply put, he was enlightening the dog, making it understand things and stop barking and causing trouble. When Bai Ye withdrew his hand, the white dog was indeed much more obedient and stopped barking. Gently picking it up, Bai Ye walked to an elder. "Keep a close eye on it. From now on, it's the head of your Wang family. There can't be any accidents." Anger. Utter anger. An anger that wanted to tear Bai Ye to pieces. The elder held the obedient puppy in his hands, his body trembling uncontrollably. "Too happy? Don't be too happy yet, the good days are yet to come." Bai Ye smiled and patted the elder's shoulder. At this moment, even the onlookers felt that the Wang family was too pitiful. It would have been better if they had been wiped out from the beginning, at least they wouldn't have suffered such humiliation. In an instant, the cultivators present all shared a consensus. If they weren't confident of completely killing Bai Ye, they should just keep quiet. But if they really offended this guy, death might be a happy ending. "This old man understands," the elder sighed deeply, feeling as if he had aged hundreds of years in an instant. His once straight back bent. From now on, in the entire Bidao, or even this universe, their Wang family would probably become the first family ruled by a dog. Ruled by a beast with no power, who couldn't even speak. They would be forever nailed to the pillar of shame because of this, ridiculed by the outside world. From now on, every time they see the Wang family, they'll be mocked as a family ruled by dogs, forever unable to hold their heads high. "Very good, submit the Wang family's list as soon as possible, then you can die," Bai Ye emphasized. Having finally vented his anger, Bai Ye was in high spirits, humming a little tune as he walked into the house, his steps incredibly light. Behind him, the three women stood frozen in place, having witnessed the entire spectacle. They felt the Wang family was truly pathetic. Killing the entire family would have been much more satisfying. It was practically torture for the Wang family. "What are you standing there for? Come with me," Bai Ye turned and urged. Almost immediately, the three women walked towards Bai Ye, even with their families and sex behind them. Seeing the Wang family's fate, they finally understood that obedience wasn't just for their own good, but also for the sake of their families. They were already in a terrible state, suffering a cut on Bai Ye's hand that would heal in an instant. If they had resisted, Bai Ye would probably have killed them all and then gone to destroy their families and sects. Following Bai Ye into the room, Jizai looked at him with a puzzled expression and asked, "Why did you come in, huh? Didn't you let me in?" Jizai asked, confused. "I called for those two," Bai Ye said, grabbing Yaozai and the holy maiden of Yaoqi by their slender waists. A hint of awkwardness flashed across the two women's faces, but they didn't resist, they just accepted it as being kissed. "Next, I'm going to help them improve their cultivation. As for you, you little brat, you're still a baby, just stay outside." Jizai tried to argue, but Bai Ye grabbed her and threw her outside. When the cold wind blew, she snapped out of her daze and smacked her forehead. "I was so stupid. I actually tried to argue. What if he really dragged me inside?" If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338: The Root of the Great Dao. Standing beside the Wang family residence in Bingwen, Jizai felt the cold wind blowing, bewildered as to why she was being relegated to guarding the door like a mere maid. Although the room was quite soundproof, she could already imagine the scene inside. "Damn it, the dignified little moon of the Ji family, am reduced to a lookout maid?" Zhao gritted her teeth, unable to accept it. At this moment, a servant of the Wang family stepped forward respectfully and said, "Miss Ji, someone is looking for you outside." "Looking for me?" Jizai asked doubtfully. "Yes, it's the holy master of the Ji family. The patriarch is looking for me. I'll go right away." Jizai nodded hurriedly. Receiving a clear answer, the servant of the Wang family breathed a sigh of relief. Now, the entire Wang family, because of Bai Ye's requirement to retain only half of the KPIs, was filled with anxiety, not only for the servants but also for the middle and upper management, who were terrified of being selected in the lottery. Those who were originally in charge of tasks were now even more careful, afraid of making a mistake and ending up on the layoff list. After all, layoffs were truly a matter of life and death. Upon receiving the news, Ji Zhao called out into the house. After receiving a casual reply, she went outside. Arriving at a guest room in the Wang family stronghold, a tall, imposing man with a composed demeanor, seemingly one with a void, looked at her and said with concern, "It's good that you're alright. After learning from Haoai that you had been kidnapped, our entire clan was very worried about your safety, patriarch." "How is my father?" Zhao asked proactively. "They're still at the Ji family. They were very worried about you after hearing about your ordeal, but now I can answer them with peace of mind." The Ji family patriarch spoke very gently, without a trace of arrogance. Hearing that her family was unharmed, Ji Zhao felt relieved. During their conversation, the topic gradually shifted to Bai Ye. "By the way, when I saw Yaoqi and Yaoguang saints behind Bai Ye today, how did their strength rise to the dragon transformation realm? And they didn't seem to have any of the superficiality that comes with such an advancement," the Ji family patriarch asked curiously, something many people wanted to know. "Oh, Bai Ye helped them," Ji Zhao could only answer awkwardly. "Then why is your cultivation level only?" "Because Bai Ye didn't help me," Ji Zhao, dressed in purple, answered somewhat awkwardly, feeling the atmosphere growing increasingly tense. "During these past few days with Bai Ye, have you learned anything about the longevity method?" The Ji family's holy master's gaze was fixed on Zhao. This was his main purpose in coming here. But to his disappointment, Ji Zhao simply shook her head slightly, indicating that she didn't know. After all, these past few days, Bai Ye had spent most of his time playing cards with the other two women, and he had very little time to communicate with her, less than 100 sentences in total. "Is that so?" The Ji family's holy master sighed imperceptibly, not getting an answer, and then asked, "The Ji family just had an emergency discussion and wants to betroth you to Bai Ye. What do you think?" "Wait, what? Betroth me to Bai Ye?" Ji Zhao looked up in astonishment. Even knowing that the clan's attitude would change after Bai Ye displayed his strength, this was too fast. "Brother Haoai, do father and mother also agree to my marriage to Bai Ye?" Ji Zhao asked nervously, suspecting that her family was also going to sell her out. "They do indeed have a negative opinion," the Ji family's holy master said casually. More than a negative opinion, upon hearing that she was to marry Bai Ye, Ji Haoai almost fought to the death, but was suppressed by the clan elders. Just like in the original story where they planned to marry Ji Zhao to Wang Tang, most of the Ji family cowered in the face of Bai Ye's tyranny. Although some elders disagreed, feeling it was too spineless, they couldn't sway the other conservatives. After all, compared to forcing a marriage, the pretense of a marriage was much better. If they disagreed, they could just snatch her from Bai Ye's hands. The other Yaoqi and Yaoguang Holy Lands thought the same way, and their attitude was even better, having witnessed their holy maiden's strength leap by a major realm. In the eyes of the various Holy Lands possessing emperor weapons, Bai Ye's current strength was equal to theirs, giving them the right to challenge each other, and he was even more willing to risk his life. I leave it all to the family to decide." Ji Zhao lowered her eyes, powerless to resist. She didn't ask the Ji family to save her. After all, having lived in the Ji family for over a decade, she knew all too well their attitude towards the clan. Compared to her own branch, the Ji family valued the overall interests more. If Bai Ye were now a great emperor, let alone Ji Zhao, even if he took a fancy to the Ji family's holy lord, he would have to sacrifice himself for the entire Ji family. Of course, if anyone dared to say such an insult to Bai Ye's intelligence in front of him, the entire Ji family would be wiped out like the angelic prisoner before. "It's so good that you think this way," the Ji family's holy lord smiled with relief, pretending not to see Ji Zhai's sorrow. "Tomorrow, we will join forces with the other holy lords to pay a visit and formally propose marriage to you," the Ji family's holy lord decided. But have you considered Bai Ye's opinion?" Ji Zhai whispered. "The most important thing now is whether he agrees. Maybe he doesn't even want to get married." Ji Zhai's words completely baffled the holy lord. It seemed reasonable. What if Bai Ye just wanted to play with Ji Zhai and then abandon her? After all, Ji Zhai was currently only a Dao Palace realm cultivator. Even with her Yuanling body and Ji family background, it still depended on Bai Ye's consent. If she was rejected outright, it would be a loss of face for the entire Ji family. Then it seems we still need to consider it. "You should go and ask him for his opinion first," the Ji family holy lord said helplessly. They had actually ignored the opinion of the person most directly involved in this matter. Yes, I will ask. Jizayar nodded obediently, but what she was really thinking remained a mystery. Meanwhile, in the room temporarily designated as Bai Ye's room, Yao Zai and the holy maiden of Yaoqi knelt on the ground, their eyes filled with conflicted emotions. Bai Ye, you mean, eating this will allow us to break through quickly? Bai Ye stroked the two women's heads, satisfied. Don't hesitate, just eat it. Everything you want is in here, no side effects. What you see before you is your future, the source of the great Dao. Just eat and drink to your heart's content. And forget about the immortal platform, even quasi-emperor or great emperor won't be a problem. I've put all my power into this. How much you get depends on your own efforts. With deep hesitation, the two women looked at the abundant source of the great Dao before them, radiating a rich aura of blood and qi. After a moment, they grasped their future in their hands, gritted their teeth, and buried themselves deep inside. In just one night, both women broke through to the fourth level of the Dragon Transformation Realm. Chapter 339 Sense of Contrast. Late at night, the Wang family held a clan meeting. All the elders were present, their expressions weary. In just one day, their Wang family had been plunged into disaster, attacked by a demonic figure. The current topic of discussion was which half of them would be chosen to meet Bai Ye's KPIs. The entire secret room was eerily silent, no one spoke, for half of them were also destined for Bai Ye's kill list. An eerie silence fell over the room. Speaking now would be tantamount to offending certain people. I believe the patriarch's lineage cannot be wiped out, an elder said, not naming who should die, but rather who should live. The patriarch's son, Wang Tang, possesses the potential to become an emperor. He is crucial to the Wang family's future rise. He absolutely cannot be on this list. These words ignited a resolute determination in everyone's eyes. An elder said, Wang Xian can't be on the list either. Elder Wang Xian reached the Sendai realm in just over 300 years, his future achievements are limitless. I am also at the first level of Sendai, and I'm willing to die in his place. Guangqing, the elder named Wang Xian looked at his friend, who had volunteered to die for him, with moved eyes. Following this, through mutual recommendations, the list of Sendai level individuals was quickly finalized, making it easy to include the younger generation. Those at the same realm were excluded based on their talent and breakthrough speed. Of course, favors and bribes slightly influenced the results, and even some impoverished branches of the Wang family were included on the list. After a long night, a thick list of tens of thousands of people was completed, all members of the Wang family. Through years of expansion, the Wang family members were now distributed throughout the northern plains. So this is the final list, the elder sighed softly, a hint of sorrow flashing in his eyes, looking at the long list in his hand. In fact, he was also on this list, and had volunteered, simply to make room for stronger members of the Wang family. Old fogies like him should be swept into the dustbin of history. Inside the room, Bai Ye was thoroughly enjoying himself. For the sake of cultivation and power, the two had worked tirelessly all night, constantly breaking through their limits. A sense of contrast? What is a sense of contrast? The current state of Yaoqi and Yaoguang Saintis was a perfect example of contrast. Their previous aloofness, their unapproachable demeanor, compared to their current posture, perfectly fulfilled the criteria for contrast, successfully satisfying Bai Ye. In short, the two had successfully pleased Bai Ye. When Bai Ye emerged from the room the next day, humming a tune, the two women were still calmly sitting cross-legged on the bed, processing what they had gained the previous night. Feeling the power within the room, countless times stronger than the day before, Jizai was utterly speechless. Seeing Bai Ye emerge, an elder stepped in front of him, saying, Senior, this is the list we discussed last night. Oh, let me see. Bai Ye picked up the list and began browsing. The list, containing tens of thousands of names, was more like a book than a booklet. Where's Wang Tang? I remember your Wang family had someone with the potential to become an emperor, Wang Tang. Bai Ye flipped through the list, but couldn't find him. Hearing Bai Ye's question about Wang Tang, the elder nervously replied. Wang Tang isn't on the list. By the way, are you on it? Bai Ye asked casually. Yes, I'm on the first page, the elder said sadly. Oh, you're quite lucky then, Bai Ye said casually. These next few are the people who won't die, huh? The elder's eyes widened in disbelief. He hadn't expected such a result. What he thought was a death list was actually a list of rebirths. Yes, the main point is the contrast, a surprise, isn't it? Bai Ye smiled and tossed the list back. Surprise my ass, those who had thought themselves immortal were furious, never expecting Bai Ye to pull off such a reversal. Those who were supposed to be dead had come back to life, while the survivors had become the dead. Everyone's emotions had taken a 180-degree turn, like a roller coaster ride. Even the elders who had willingly sacrificed themselves, resigned to their fate, couldn't help but feel a surge of relief. Looking at the elders who were now entering the death row, their faces contorted with grief, these survivors, even knowing it was too cruel to laugh, couldn't suppress the smiles on their faces, their expressions a mixture of amusement and despair. No way, I'm not convinced. I should have survived, Bai Ye, you scoundrel. I'll never forgive you, ... At that moment, some couldn't hold back any longer and wanted to explode at Bai Ye, but the instant they opened their mouths, a flash of sword energy instantly reduced them to ashes. What kind of strength do you have to dare spout such nonsense in my home? Bai Ye sheathed his bone sword, now regarding the entire Wang family as his own residence. Looking at their clansmen cleaved in two, the complex emotions in the hearts of the others were indescribable. Bai Ye, however, paid them no heed, calmly saying, remember to carry it out. Don't leave a single one alive, especially that Wang Tang. What trash, daring to call himself an emperor. Yes, we will do as you command, the elder sighed, his confidence unwavering. Normally, if the elder had followed the list, all the survivors would have understood that they had been saved by the sacrifice of their other half, and would have been united. But now, with Bai Ye's interference, if the selection process were exposed, the entire Wang family would quickly fall apart, and all the survivors would realize they were the ones abandoned. In that case, the survivors might even feel Stockholm Syndrome-like gratitude towards Bai Ye for giving them their lives, and would be even more loyal to him. Behind this seemingly playful facade lies a deep scheming, the Wang family elder thought, feeling a chill run down his spine. But in reality, Bai Ye was just playing around. He didn't care who was in power, as long as someone served him diligently, that was enough. If not, they could leave. Senior, just now, the holy lords of the Ji family, Yao Guang Holy Land, and Yao Qi Holy Land all came to visit, wanting to speak with you, an elder spoke up, watching Bai Ye's retreating figure. Them? What do they want with me? To hunt me down, Bai Ye asked, then said indifferently, when? I'll go see, they're at Wangaiyu Tower in Yan Kingdom not far away. Please come over in 3 hours to explain that you wish to seek the method of immortality from them, the elder repeated. Alright, I'll go then, Bai Ye said, beckoning to Ji Ziyu and asking, let's go. Those two are cultivating. Accompany me to stroll around the capital of Yan Kingdom today. I haven't had a proper shopping trip in ages after being chased like this. Chapter 340 Persuading to Reconcile. In the capital of Yan, a handsome young man with long, flowing hair strolled through the streets. His smooth, ink-black hair, his flawlessly fair skin, his perfectly proportioned features, and the composed air that emanated from his gentle smile all commanded respect at first glance. His elegant appearance and unhurried demeanor alone suggested a noble status, far beyond the reach of ordinary people. Beside him stood a graceful young woman. Her beauty was equally exquisite, like a violet blooming in the morning light. Her skin was as delicate as warm jade, with a subtle purple sheen, and her eyes were deep and bright, like stars in the night sky. To onlookers, the two stood together like a perfect couple. These two were none other than Bai Ye and Ji Ziyu, who had come out for a leisurely stroll. They still had some time before the invitation from the Holy Lords, and not wanting to waste any more time, they had come out for a stroll. Standing beside Bai Ye, Ji Ziyu's expression was conflicted, still pondering the conversation the Ji family's holy master had with her the day before. Let me marry her, Ji Ziyu's mind wandered, her gaze shifting slightly to Bai Ye's face, observing his every move. Even those who disliked Bai Ye the most had to admit that he was indeed a handsome man who embodied all the beauty standards of humanity, and with his current gentle appearance, he was someone you could stare at all day without getting tired of. If mature women could have a young, devoted man like Bai Ye, they would be ecstatic. In the bustling market, Bai Ye held a sugar figurine, licking it gently, his left hand holding the end of the stick, his right hand taking out a certain number of copper coins from his purse and handing them out. Since he was out shopping, he naturally needed to buy some, and this money came from a member of the Wang family. The way Bai Ye politely handed over the money, and the gentleness in his demeanor towards ordinary people, made it difficult for Ji Ziyu to connect him with the ruthless figure who had slaughtered the entire Wang family yesterday. If she hadn't witnessed Bai Ye's actions firsthand, she would have found it hard to believe it was the same person. But Bai Ye, having also risen from the bottom, having once been involved in the underworld, and living a cautious life, naturally saw through these ordinary people and didn't react with excessive emotion. He felt neither pity nor disdain, nor did he consider them equals. He simply assumed they were all living beings, uninteresting individuals with different personalities shaped by different experiences, smiling to their faces upon first meeting, but who knew what they were thinking behind their backs? When there was no conflict and time was relatively ample, Bai Ye wouldn't hesitate to smile, cultivating a friendly attitude in their eyes. He might even offer them some favors when in a good mood. Normally, Bai Ye wouldn't harbor malice towards these ordinary people. But if his antics resulted in them being affected, Bai Ye wouldn't feel guilty. His will remained steadfast, always self-centered. As long as he didn't witness the misery of these mortals, he wouldn't think about it or dwell on their suffering. As for those who offended him, like the Wang family, Bai Ye would make a judgment based on the values of good and evil within his mind. The evil will in his mind was tempting him to crush all those who had offended him. The good will, on the other hand, nodded in agreement, saying that the evil will was right, and everyone should be blasted to dust. On the matter of eliminating evil, the opposition, completely, Bai Ye was undoubtedly single-minded, without any internal conflict. Perhaps his only concern was that those who had offended him hadn't died tragically enough. As long as those who had offended him were killed, that was enough, but if even one of them survived, he would be anxious and unable to sleep. Strolling along the street, Bai Ye acted like a curious young man. Of course, this was indeed his first time visiting such an ancient-looking city, and he was full of interest in everything. Along the way, he bought everything that interested him, from clothes to various toys. All sorts of items were stored away, and if these things were stacked up, they would almost be taller than him. This is the first time I've felt so tired from shopping, Ji Ziyu thought helplessly. Is that Bai Ye? A cultivator in the crowd looked at the young man on the street, a hint of surprise in his expression. At this moment, the entire Yan kingdom was in turmoil. Because of the longevity method, everyone in the Bidao region was flocking here, and in a short time, the proportion of cultivators in the Yan capital was almost 1/10 of the ordinary population. However, because Bai Ye's power had only emerged yesterday, some cultivators who had just entered the city and weren't well informed were unaware of this news. Bai Ye's swaggering walk down the street seemed too conspicuous to them. Therefore, many cultivators who saw Bai Ye prepared to use their magic to control him. But before they could even release a wisp of spiritual energy, several cultivators in the shadows stopped them. Are you crazy? Daring to attack that fiend? You just entered the city, right? A cultivator in the shadows said nervously, trying to stop him. Why are you stopping me? That kid is right there, the one who had made the move said, puzzled. Didn't you see that sword aura yesterday? That light that pierced the Big Dipper, it came from this kid's hand. He has a quasi-emperor weapon, you know that, the cultivator who had stopped him explained. If it weren't for the fact that this person possessed the strength of the dragon transformation realm, he wouldn't have bothered talking and would have just killed him and dragged him away. A quasi-emperor weapon. That golden light yesterday was from him? How is that possible? The cultivator gasped. Why would I lie to you? If you anger him, one strike and half a Big Dipper will disappear. You didn't see the scene yesterday. Everyone who dared to utter a sound was hacked to pieces by this kid. Even the holy lords of those holy lands and aristocratic families didn't dare to act rashly. You, a mere dragon transformation realm cultivator, should try to stand up for yourself. After all, cultivating to the dragon transformation realm isn't easy. Don't be courting death, the cultivator earnestly advised, afraid that these guys would act impulsively and cause everyone to perish. Before a quasi-emperor weapon, distance is meaningless. As long as you're on this planet, except for those forbidden zones, going anywhere else is useless. Therefore, truly intelligent people wanted to stay by Bai Ye's side during these most dangerous days to prevent some brainless fools with insufficient information from causing trouble for him. And after the surrounding cultivators earnestly persuaded him, the guy who was about to attack finally withdrew his hand in fear, narrowly escaping death. Chapter 341 Murder Without Regard to Family Ties. At this moment, outside the capital of Yan, a group of cultivators had taken over the duties of ordinary guards, standing watch at the city gate. A middle-aged cultivator at the dragon transformation realm walked to the gate and was quickly stopped. Halt, what are you doing here? A cultivator asked. Hey, isn't it obvious? The dragon transformation cultivator said speechlessly. If it weren't for catching that little thief, who had come to this shabby city of mortals, you don't understand, do you? The city guard said, blocking him from entering. Bai Ye is not what he used to be. Hey, he has a quasi-emperor artifact. You saw the golden light yesterday. He shot it. We're here to stop you blind fools. So what if he has a quasi-emperor artifact? Don't those aristocratic families have them too? Why weren't you so excited before? The cultivator asked curiously. I told you you don't understand. Bai Ye is crazy. He only cares about himself. If you piss him off he'll slash the ground. Do you think you'll die? The cultivator said disdainfully, rolling his eyes. So the longevity method is just going to go down the drain, the dragon transformation cultivator lamented. He had spent most of his life climbing to the dragon stage and was nearing the end of his lifespan. If he delayed any longer, he would have to cultivate the sunflower manual. But the sunflower manual not only required self-castration but also required constant burning desire. Under such circumstances, let alone calming down to cultivate, it was difficult to even maintain rationality in daily life. Don't worry about it. News just came out that the holy lords from all over the country have brought their imperial artifacts to Yan Kingdom to formally negotiate with Bai Ye. Don't worry about it, the cultivator waved his hand and said, go back. With your current strength, you can only wait for notification. Anyway, if the negotiations break down and a war breaks out, you won't be able to escape the aftermath. After spending some time persuading another group of cultivators to leave, he looked up and saw a cultivator at the first level of the immortal platform flying into the city. Please wait, sir. The guards hurriedly raised their stance to block his way, saying, flying is restricted in Yan Kingdom today. What do you mean? You bunch of lowly dragon transformation cultivators dare to block my way, the powerful cultivator at the Sendai level said coldly. You don't know what happened yesterday, do you? You know that golden light, right? Using the same familiar rhetoric, they successfully persuaded the powerful cultivator to leave after a few minutes. Finally, we've persuaded another one to leave. The cultivator wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Wait, why didn't I notice how slow the news spread before? It's been a whole day, and there are still people in the entire Bidao who don't know that Bai Ye has a quasi-emperor artifact, another cultivator said speechlessly. After all, Bidao is too big, and a considerable number of those powerful cultivators are in the deep mountains and forests. It's normal that they don't know. We'll stop as many as we can, a cultivator sighed. Even Bai Ye didn't know that so many people were secretly thinking of his safety. But the journey was indeed very smooth, giving Bai Ye an excellent experience, with no ignorant cultivators getting in his way. As for ordinary people, seeing his imposing and powerful presence, even an emperor standing beside him would pale in comparison, and naturally, they wouldn't dare to cause trouble. They didn't even encounter the typical slap-in-the-face scenario of a brainless rich kid. Strolling slowly down the street, Bai Ye calculated that it was almost time. I think I forgot to inform you yesterday, Bai Ye suddenly said. Inform you? Ji Ziyu turned to look at Bai Ye. Inform you of what? I should have asked you to inform your Ji family, to tell them to be careful, Bai Ye said. Ji Ziyu? Exactly, I'm the kind of person who doesn't know how to hold back when I do things. Bai Ye walked side by side with a girl. It wouldn't be good if I killed your whole family. What's going on? Ji Ziyu's brain went blank for a moment. How did the topic suddenly turn to genocide? After all, I'm not the type to show mercy to women. We're about to have formal contact with your holy lord, Bai Ye said with some distress. If the Ji family offends me, I can at most guarantee your survival. I don't shy away from killing relatives. Even if you're reluctant, if the Ji family offends me, you'll have to sever ties with them, Bai Ye said seriously. So you mean? Ji Ziyu held her breath. So, in your upcoming interactions with your holy lord, you can only hope they don't offend me. Otherwise, even if you're my woman, I'll kill them, not just you, but also Yao Qi Yao Zai and the others. I forgot to remind them of the forces behind them, Ji Ziyu. Not only Ji Ziyu, but also the other cultivators who were blocking Bai Ye from approaching fell silent. Too arrogant, this was everyone's thought, and it was the first time they had seen someone speak to their woman like this, so bluntly and coldly. What does it mean to kill without regard for family? Even if you are my woman, if your relatives offend me, I will kill your entire family. These words were utterly shattering the worldviews of these cultivators. So this is what it's like to be a strong man, the cultivators present suddenly thought. Compared to Bai Ye's arrogance, they felt their cultivation had been wasted all these years. At most, they would kill a few people and oppress the lower classes, but this was the first time they had seen such a blatant declaration from Bai Ye. Even Jizai was shocked by Bai Ye's statement, and then whispered, "Then should I go and remind the family head?" "No need, someone has already gone to remind him." Bai Ye smiled. The surrounding cultivators would certainly carry out the relay faithfully. After all, some of them were sent by the Holy Land's aristocratic families. Not long after, the Holy Land's aristocratic families received the message from Bai Ye, and they were all furious, feeling that this must be Bai Ye's provocation. But these words came from Bai Ye's heart. They weren't a provocation, but rather his genuine belief, a principle he followed. A friend's friend wasn't his friend. Even if he was certain Jizai would be his woman in the future, what did she have to do with the Ji family? Anyone who offended him would die anyway. So, this was just a heads up, to prevent anyone from blaming him for being heartless when they died. Thinking about it this way, he was incredibly kind. After strolling with the girl for a while, the two successfully arrived at Wagayu Tower, where the various holy lords had already arrived. The gatekeepers naturally recognized Bai Ye and let him in without any hindrance. Reaching the top floor, Bai Ye immediately became the center of attention, all the holy lords' eyes fixed on him. Bai Ye wasn't intimidated at all, looking at everyone and saying, "I'm here." "So, what brings you here, young man? Don't be hasty. The main purpose of this meeting is to discuss the longevity method with you. Several elders in my clan are about to pass away, and we urgently need to obtain the longevity method to extend their lives," said Holy Lord Yao Guang. "Yes, as long as you are willing to hand over the perfect longevity method to us, we are willing to exchange it for precious treasures," said another Holy Lord. Bai Ye said indifferently, "Willing to give? Fine, then gather 99 holy maidens to form a Big Dipper dance troupe and give it to me." Chapter 342. The most expensive things are the free ones. To form a 99-member beat-out dance troupe of holy women, faced with Bai Ye's request, all the holy lords were speechless. Such a request was truly unique, they had never even heard of it before. In fact, before this, they had imagined many outrageous requests Bai Ye might make, such as cultivation methods from various holy lands, or even requests for emperor-level weapons. They never expected that his current request would be so unreasonable. Fellow Taoist Bai Ye, please don't joke around," the Ji family holy lord said with a helpless smile. "Who's joking with you?" Bai Ye shook his head. "A transaction is fine as long as both parties feel it's worthwhile. I think this Saintess dance troupe is quite interesting. To me, your so-called imperial weapons are just trash. If you can really gather 99 Saintesses to offer me, I'd consider trading not only the longevity method, but even the immortality method." As Bai Ye spoke, he walked inside, found an empty armchair, sat down, and casually said, "So, if you can provide them, I can trade now." The holy lords exchanged glances, all seeing the difficulty in their eyes. Leaving aside the fact that Bai Ye's request was too offensive, even if they wanted to agree, they couldn't gather 99 Saintesses. The entire Beidao Holy Land had no more than 50. Even if they were willing to offer inferior goods, Bai Ye, as the buyer, would absolutely not agree. As for the immortality method Bai Ye mentioned, these people simply didn't believe it. This negotiation was deadlocked from the very beginning. "Don't worry, although the perfect longevity method is gone, I still have some good things here." Bai Ye pulled out several booklets from his robes, a mischievous smile on his face. "You can't afford the paid ones, but here are some free ones, although they have a few minor flaws." As he spoke, Bai Ye placed the booklets on the table and gently pushed them forward. The holy lords looked closely and saw that they were titled with titles such as Shattered Dream Blade, Self-Finger Engine, Turtle Breathing Manual, Unequal Divine Skill. Fellow Taoist Bai Ye, what are these secret manuals? The holy lord's eyes were filled with anticipation. "You'll know once you see them." Bai Ye's smile grew even wider. The holy lords looked at the contents with curiosity. Shattered Dream Blade, each swing will entangle cause and effect, inevitably causing those around you to change their hearts, but extending lifespan by 4,000 years. Self-Pointing Engine, first stage extends lifespan by 1,000 years. Sex Change, second stage, Narcissism, extending lifespan by 2,000 years. Third stage, Self-Cuckoldry, extending lifespan by 5,000 years. Turtle Breathing Manual, extends lifespan by 15,000 years. A true turtle technique, but will cause an irresistible infatuation with practitioners of the inequal form divine art, with no resistance whatsoever. Inequal form divine art extends lifespan by 900% through an inequality greater than 3,000 blades, and can freely control men who cultivate the turtle breathing manual, but will experience cognitive impairment, possibly thinking potatoes are not potatoes, and will be utterly powerless against beings stronger than themselves. Second Mandeo. Defying the heavens, looking at the longevity methods before them, all the holy lords fell silent. Each one could be described as earth-shattering. But each one had flaws that were unbearable. First was the shattered dream blade. Ancient aristocratic families absolutely could not practice it, otherwise their families would probably be more chaotic than Norse mythology. Then there's the green engine, a technique where the user falls in love with themselves after a gender swap, but extends their lifespan through promiscuity. To achieve immortality, one's will to live must outweigh their self-love, a self-destructive struggle. Next is the turtle breathing manual, a supposedly divine technique for tortoises, which extends lifespan but leaves one completely controlled by others, losing all individuality. The inequality further defies logic, directly extending lifespan proportionally, yet it's extremely narcissistic, obsessed with the strong, and its displayed understanding is akin to raping the Holy Lord's intelligence. 1-1, utterly nonsensical. While the Holy Lords engaged in serious discussion, Bai Ye watched with a smile, never interrupting. He was known for his honesty, waiting for his clients to understand the product's attributes and pros and cons before making a choice. Regardless of their decisions, he would keep these cultivation methods. While the covering the sky technique excels in combat, it's too dull. He believed that possessing these techniques would create a group of eccentric characters. Bai Ye had originally planned to complete the game using the normal method, but unfortunately, he had lost all his no-damage records and lost interest in continuing. He could only resort to some unorthodox methods. After a long while, once the Holy Lords had finished reviewing the manual Bai Ye had provided, the Yao Guang Holy Lord slowly raised her head and asked, "Fellow Taoist Bai Ye, don't you think this manual is too demanding?" "Demanding? Where is it demanding? Don't spout nonsense. Immortality is very difficult. If you think it's demanding, you don't have to cultivate it." Bai Ye spread her hands and said, "Think about whether you've worked hard in your cultivation over the years. A group of holy lords who haven't even reached the level of a saint. Stop being so picky." Faced with Bai Ye's accusation, the holy lords began to feel anger rising within them. What did he mean by not even reaching the level of a saint? They were in the Dharma ending age, on the eve of the Golden Age, where even the emergence of a saint was unprecedented. To say they hadn't even reached the level of a saint was simply outrageous. In short, you should all reflect on yourselves. Bai Ye tapped the table lightly, then said thoughtfully, "All right, I forgot to remind you, those cultivation techniques can be practiced together, together." All the holy lords were dumbfounded. That meant one could be both a eunuch and a fairy, and after being castrated, one could undergo gender reassignment surgery, become cuckolded, and then be paired with a male. Hiss, just thinking about that scene sent chills down the spines of the holy lords. What a monstrous hybrid of human evil. "I've left my things here." Bai Ye tapped the table lightly with his index finger, a warm smile on his face. "As for the perfect longevity method, come back and talk to me when you have 99 people." With that, Bai Ye waved his hand and led Ji Zai downstairs, leaving the holy lords to ponder the rest. Watching Bai Ye walk downstairs step by step, the holy lords' eyes were filled with conflict. They were considering whether they could capture Bai Ye instantly and then search his soul. But after much deliberation, even as Bai Ye's figure disappeared from the elegant pavilion, they still hadn't made up their minds. After all, a single misstep could have dire consequences. They had time to agonize over it. There was no rush. One of the holy lords had already secretly memorized all the secret manuals, preparing to distribute the techniques Bai Ye had left behind. He intended to use the entire Big Dipper star as a testing ground for his goo poison, letting others serve as his experiments. Chapter 343 Supreme Ruler of the Forbidden Zone. Overnight, the news spread rapidly once again. All the secret manuals left behind by Bai Ye were disseminated in unknown ways, causing cultivators who obtained them to curse him inwardly. A cultivator nearing death looked at the books before him, his eyes filled with deep hesitation, unsure of which to choose. After a long while, he cursed Bai Ye for being inhuman and picked up a manual on green engines to read. Scenes like this unfolded in many places on the ancient star of the Big Dipper, But everyone's choices differed. With multiple options provided by Bai Ye, these people could choose according to their own preferences. Whether it was self-castration, cross-dressing, gender reassignment, being a eunuch, or becoming a fairy, he provided ample conditions. Meanwhile, on the other side, following Bai Ye's declaration of leaving half for the rest, the entire Wang family was wiped out, their heads rolling. Countless people not on the list lost their lives overnight. On yet another side, a man clad in shimmering battle armor, radiating dazzling golden light, his every movement seemingly accompanied by golden brilliance, was currently fighting a bloody battle. His opponent was none other than his own kin within his own family. Wang Teng, surrender, a Wang family elder, blood streaming down his face, looked at the desperately resisting Wang Teng with deep sorrow in his eyes. You can't escape now. You're the only one left in the family line. Stop resisting, the elder roared. We're family, are you going to kill me? Wang Teng coldly questioned, but was met with even fiercer attacks. This is Bai Ye's order. We have no choice, the elder said, but his hands didn't relax at all, each strike aimed at Wang Teng with all his might. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless, Wang Teng said coldly. Half an hour later, with a scream, Wang Teng pulled the Heavenly Emperor's sword from the brow of the last surviving elder, looking at the ravaged land. At this moment, tens of thousands of miles of land had been transformed into a swamp of lightning, not a single patch of land was intact, and countless corpses of pursuers lay scattered all around. Bai Ye, Wang Teng's eyes flashed with hatred. With a slight tremor of his hand, thousands of miles of rivers and mountains turned to dust. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared from the spot, speeding away into the distance. Of course, he wasn't going to cause trouble for Bai Ye, because he knew how vast a gap was between them. Blindly going in would only be suicide. His purpose at this moment was to fetch reinforcements. To fetch reinforcements from those forbidden zones of life. Although the entire Beidou was in an uproar because of Bai Ye, the forbidden zones of life, where outsiders would surely die if they stepped on them, were obviously a little slow to receive information. The only movement these days was sensing the power of a quasi-emperor artifact with a strange aura. But for the supreme beings inside, it was just like children playing around. As long as Beidou wasn't blown up and affected the dormancy of these supreme beings in the forbidden zones of life, they wouldn't bother to interfere. After all, it was just a quasi-emperor artifact, not a quasi-emperor undergoing tribulation to become an emperor. There was nothing to care about. If they really wanted to fight, they wouldn't even need to reach the extreme realm to kill an ordinary quasi-emperor. Wang Teng understood the allure of those immortality methods to the supreme beings within the forbidden zone. These beings were hiding precisely because they desired immortality. Therefore, as long as the news of Bai Ye possessing an immortality method reached those supreme beings, he wouldn't need to lift a finger. Someone would naturally deal with Bai Ye severely. The so-called quasi-emperor artifact Bai Ye possessed, and the nuclear weapon-like threat, would be easily dismissed as a joke in the eyes of the supreme beings. The only problem now was how to enter the forbidden area to deliver the message. The entire primordial ancient mind was crimson red, as it had always been since ancient times. Decay and death were its eternal themes. The vast land was empty, 1,000 miles of crimson, stretching as far as the eye could see. This scene gave a powerful visual impact, instilling an aura of desolation and despair. Standing at the edge of the primordial ancient mind, looking ahead, a resolute glint flashed in Wang Teng's eyes. Holding a copy of the Sunflower Manual in his hand, Wang Teng rushed in without hesitation. As he flew, Wang Teng shouted, "Junior Wang Teng possesses the method of immortality and requests an audience with the supreme beings within the forbidden zone." His voice boomed like thunder, echoing across the blood-red earth. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Wang Teng was trapped in midair, unable to move like a salted fish pulled from the water. An unknown being, completely shielded by a barrier, its appearance and clothing obscured, observed Wang Teng. If it weren't for the blood energy that had surpassed that of a great emperor 1,000,000 times recently, and the chaotic ancient emperor talisman possessed by the man before him, anyone daring to make a sound here would have been crushed like a small fry. The mysterious being emitted a faint fluctuation. "You say you possess the method of immortality?" "Yes," Wang Teng replied respectfully, "it's in my hands." The supreme being noticed the books Wang Teng held in his hands. The next moment, the books floated and unfolded. In an instant, the supreme being thoroughly analyzed these books, and then an uncontrollable fluctuation emanated from its body. It was a fluctuation carrying anger. A wave of malice swept across Wang Teng. In an instant, Wang Teng's body and soul, along with the book, were torn into countless fragments, turning into a cloud of blood mist that splattered across the crimson earth. Utterly absurd. Trying to fool me with his child's doodles, the Supreme Being stared at the blood mist, realizing he had actually believed a child's foolish talk of immortality. Because the Supreme Being's comprehension speed was too fast, he had read the entire book in a mere instant. By the time he finished learning, his meridians hadn't even had time to grow. Without the support of meridians, Bai Ye's techniques were more laughable than a child's fairy tale to Supreme Beings of different systems, utterly illogical. Therefore, the enraged Supreme Being unleashed a wave of energy immediately, instantly killing Wang Teng before him. Gently picking up the chaotic ancient Emperor talisman, the Supreme Being turned to leave, but his steps abruptly stopped. Because countless meridians within his body were growing wildly, seemingly corresponding to what he had just seen. In other words, the claim of extending lifespan by thousands or even tens of thousands of years is not false. A flicker of excitement flashed in the Supreme Being's eyes, but turning to look at Wang Tengjiang, whom he had reduced to bloody mist, he fell silent again. He had acted too quickly and hastily, failing to extract the origins of these techniques from the man. Sensing the meridians within his body corresponding to the manuals, and considering the stringent conditions required for these techniques, this Supreme Being, having already severed himself, did not want to inflict further physical damage for the time being. After repairing the manuals, the Supreme Being headed towards the interior of the Forbidden Zone. Now that he had found such a treasure, how could he not share it with his fellow old ghosts? Having slumbered for so long, perhaps I can emerge again, who knows, perhaps new changes will occur in the world, the Supreme Being thought to himself. Chapter 344 Preparing to Return. Within a single day, without anyone knowing, a tremendous tremor occurred at the primordial ancient mine. Soon after, a dozen or so men, dressed in different attire but all exuding an imposing aura, appeared around the mine's perimeter. These men all emanated an aura of aloofness, keeping strangers at bay. Countless years of cold, desolate sitting in slumber had hardened their hearts to an unyielding cold. The lives of mortals held no sway over them. Leaving the crimson earth and gazing upon the human world, still teeming with life after countless years, these men suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu. Without exchanging words, each understood their purpose, and their figures dispersed in an instant, disappearing into the crowd. After these days of dissemination, Bai Ye's secret manual was now circulating among cultivators throughout the northern Dipperland. It seemed that the truth would soon be revealed. Meanwhile, Bai Ye, who had just returned from a stroll, heard a report from an elder of the Wang family. Reporting, "Senior, I have just received news that all the family elders who pursued Wang Teng have perished. Not a single one survived," the elder said tremulously. "He escaped." Bai Ye stopped, but didn't have much doubt. After all, he was a guy with the potential of an emperor. It wasn't surprising that he evaded a pursuer. He casually said, "Then go after him. Let other forces do it for me. Anyway, I only want half of the Wang family to die. As for how they die, I don't care." Bai Ye lightly strode past the clan elder, saying, "Spread the wanted notice, and other forces will naturally curry favor with me and hunt him down." What level is Wang Teng? Does he deserve my personal attention? After saying that, Bai Ye, along with Ji Ziao and Yao Zai, went into the inner room. Sitting properly in a chair, Bai Ye waited for Yao Zai to politely brew tea for him with her slender hands. Yao Zai's jade-like fingers were long and delicate. She deftly lifted the purple clay teapot, and the hot water poured into it like fine silk. The moment it met the tea leaves, it seemed as if one could hear the breath of nature. These past few days, after meeting with the holy lords, Bai Ye's life was finally settling into a routine, and he enjoyed a period of leisurely peace. In reality, Bai Ye only did two things during this time. During the day, he took the three women out for a shopping spree, strolling from the capital of Yan Kingdom all the way to Yaoqi Holy Land, enjoying the scenery and occasionally visiting brothels to listen to music. At night, given the dull nightlife of this world, he could only spare some effort to help Yao Zai and the two Yaoqi girls improve their cultivation. With his unconditional feeding, he successfully helped them reach the second level of the immortal platform realm in just a few days. This cultivation speed completely stunned Ji Ziao, who was still lingering within the Dao Palace realm. Her family members were secretly reminding her to strive for improvement, which made her secretly resentful. But Bai Ye didn't harm her. Even though he was raising Yao Guang and the Yaochi Holy Maiden's cultivation levels too frequently every night, causing them to beg for mercy, he didn't even glance at her. They couldn't very well expect her to kick open the door and say, "I'm joining you too," while Bai Ye was having a deep conversation with them, could they? Besides, even if she wanted to, based on their interactions these past few days, she felt Bai Ye would just grab her by the scruff of the neck and throw her out, saying, "Little brat, don't you dare get involved." Bai Ye sat upright in his chair, watching the steam rising from the tea in front of him, his mind unexpectedly drifting, his thoughts following the steam, his eyes unfocused, slowly pausing in a daze. The three women looked at the dazed Bai Ye with some surprise. They all knew that Bai Ye had been incredibly energetic these past few days. He was either playing or playing with them, he was never still. This was the first time they had seen Bai Ye daydreaming. Ji Ziyu stretched out her hand and waved it in front of Bai Ye's eyes, directly interrupting his thoughts. "Is there something you need?" "Nothing, but I haven't seen you cultivating these past few days," Ji Ziyu asked. Ji Ziyu, recalling what her Holy Lord had subtly mentioned, reminded him, "The Patriarch said that a golden age is about to begin, countless geniuses will emerge, and a new great emperor may be born. At that time, even powerful families and sects wielding emperor-level weapons will undergo reshuffling. With only a quasi-emperor weapon, it's not so safe." "Cultivation? What's so great about cultivation?" Bai Ye rolled his eyes. "What great emperor or supreme? You can reach that easily. Why cultivate that kind of thing?" Such arrogant words, Ji Ziyu and the others thought. But it was indeed true. In the past few days, through careful observation of the women's physical structures during their conversations, he had grasped most of the basic principles of the heaven covering technique. Given some time, even if he didn't become a great emperor in one step, becoming a quasi-emperor wouldn't be a problem. As for the tribulation lightning? What tribulation lightning? He overcame it with his own abilities, why would he need a tribulation lightning? However, I heard that a few days ago, your brother seemed to have gone to cause trouble for the descendants of the demon emperor, Bai Ye asked curiously. Yet, after being defeated by you, I'm going to work hard to find a new opponent and even try to seize their emperor weapon, Ji Ziyu said speechlessly. Having witnessed the power of Bai Ye's quasi-emperor weapon, she realized how strong the mirror usually carried by the family head was, and she hadn't expected her brother to be so arrogant. Bai Ye smiled calmly. According to the rumors circulating outside, the general plot hadn't changed much afterward. Yi Fen had obtained a massive amount of Xuanhuang Mother Key in the Bronze Immortal Palace and was now being hunted by the entire world. Bai Ye calculated the time, there were still many years until the dark turmoil, and he couldn't wait that long. Now that he had spent several months exploring the world of covering the sky, having seen everything he needed to see, perhaps it was time to consider returning home? After all, given the 1,001 time flow between the game and reality, staying in reality for a year would allow him to experience countless storylines. Thinking this, Bai Ye looked up at the people in front of him and said, I'm going to leave for a while. Be prepared to part with your loved ones. Leave? Where are you going? Ji Ziyu couldn't help but ask. It's another world. Time there is hundreds or even thousands of times slower than here. One day there is more than 3 years here, Bai Ye explained. Doesn't that mean everyone here will die of old age in less than a year? Ji Ziyu gasped, covering her mouth in surprise. Was she about to be separated from her family forever? That's roughly how it works, Bai Ye nodded gently. Then, Ji Ziyu hesitated, wanting to ask if she could stay, but she knew she had no say in such a crucial matter. Seeing Ji Ziyu's hesitation, Bai Ye's thoughts drifted back to days. This time, however, the women were preoccupied with other matters and didn't interrupt. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 All Members. On the ancient star of the Big Dipper, the newly emerged supreme beings, after a period of travel, understood the reasons for the star's appearance. However, they were quickly drawn to the changes occurring on the star. It's important to understand that when the Holy Lords distributed the cultivation method Bai Ye gave them, although it was only intended for cultivators, those cultivators also had their own desires and wanted to test it on themselves. Therefore, under increasing pressure, almost everyone on the ancient star, from cultivators to commoners, knew about this method. The entire ancient star of the Big Dipper was boundless, countless times larger than the sun. Such a massive volume, if not for the countless divine runes beneath the ground, would probably have long since collapsed into a black hole. On the ancient star, there were countless small countries with hundreds of millions of people, the total population probably in the trillions. The number of ordinary people who died each day with their lifespans dwindling was even more countless. Even if Bai Ye's cultivation method had intolerable flaws, practicing it would still grant everyone at least several thousand years of immortality. Even if only 1% of the dying elderly practiced it, it would still amount to a huge sum. Looking at the countless men in this country, brimming with vitality but utterly flawed in character or physique, the supreme beings fell silent. What hadn't they seen in all these years? Holy crap! They'd never seen anything like it. Through their observations over this period, they had successfully learned that the originator of all these changes was none other than Bai Ye. The dozen or so supreme beings who emerged from the desolate ancient forbidden land, based on their different experiences, possessed varying thoughts and personalities. Some remained calm and collected, wanting to observe the situation further, while others acted boldly, wanting to directly test Bai Ye's strength and launch a surprise attack. At this moment, a supreme being who had successfully uncovered the truth was preparing to act. Boom! In an instant, an extremely powerful aura was released from the body of a black-robed man, sweeping across the heavens and earth. The sheer force of this aura caused the entire Big Dipper ancient star and the surrounding stars to tremble. As the aura was released, everyone on the entire ancient star felt as if their heart was being squeezed by a fist, making it difficult to breathe. A holy lord looked up in shock. This aura. Is it a great sage? Or a quasi-emperor making a move? Well, for most of them who had never witnessed the might of an emperor, whether it was a great sage or a supreme being, it was all the same, just a single attack. Meanwhile, the players who had entered this place through the game were utterly astonished. What's going on? I just entered the game, and such a powerful boss battle has already appeared. As for the holy lords who wielded emperor-level weapons and knew who was sealed within the forbidden land of life, a knowing glint flashed in their eyes. They were very aware of this day's arrival. It was unavoidable. Not only Wang Tang, but even they themselves had considered talking to the lords of the forbidden zones, but they hadn't implemented this method, preparing to wait a while. Inside the Wang family mansion, this terrifying aura naturally interrupted Bai Ye's days. Looking at the trembling table, a look of realization flashed in Bai Ye's eyes. What's going on? This aura feels even more terrifying than the quasi-emperor weapon I unleashed before. The thought arose in the minds of Ji Zhao and the other two women, and then they saw blinding swordlight flash. An unparalleled, terrifying sword aura shone down, instantly annihilating the entire Northern Plains royal family, leaving only a few people inside. A man held a bone sword to Bai Ye's face, the sharp sword light almost tearing everything around him to shreds. The sword in his hand was Bai Ye's bone sword. Feeling the constantly strengthening, almost living, strange material within it, a hint of surprise flashed in the man's eyes. This sword was unexpectedly effective, and the material was ridiculously superior, unheard of. This young man before him indeed had many secrets, perhaps he could use them to extract all of them. The man gripped the ancient sword. One strike would be enough to disintegrate the young man before him, leaving not a trace of dust. But, having lost all his support, the man, pointed at Bai him, showed no change in expression. Surrounded by Bai Ye, watching the man who had raised the entire Wang family to the ground with terrifying power, the three women's perfectly sculpted faces betrayed a barely concealed worry. Why didn't you avoid him? The man asked slowly, looking down at Bai Ye, who sat upright in his chair. You should be a supreme being from a forbidden zone? Which forbidden zone? Bai Ye looked up at the man before him, and you came alone. As he spoke, Bai Ye opened a chat group he hadn't mentioned in a long time and started tagging members. Bai Ye, add all members. Please accept my invitation. At that moment, Bai Ye, who hadn't spoken in a while, instantly roused the chat group members. Unfortunately, due to the vast time difference between the world of covering the sky and the outside world, no one responded yet. Meanwhile, with the Supreme Being's outburst, not only the Big Dipper star region, but the entire universe could feel this oppressive aura. The Supreme Beings sleeping in the other forbidden zones were directly awakened, somewhat bewildered by the sudden change in their universe before they had even had a long time to sleep. But at this moment, this Supreme Being no longer cared. A dozen or so supreme beings in the primordial ancient mind already knew this secret, and a few more wouldn't matter. The most important thing now was to obtain the secret of the longevity method from Bai Ye. The other supreme beings in the primordial ancient mind shared this idea, but none wanted to be the first to act, remaining coldly observing from the ancient star. This man looked at Bai Ye and chuckled coldly, but a sense of unease, a feeling that something was spiraling out of control, crept into his heart. He was already preparing to forcibly search Bai Ye's soul. The man stretched out his right hand, his arm, normally the size of a normal person's, now seemingly capable of blotting out the sky, reaching for Bai Ye's head. As he reached out, the man said disdainfully, "You're quite composed. I've already taken your weapon, and you can still. His voice trailed off, until only his lips moved, unconsciously forming another holy crap. Before him, the man who had merely reached the pinnacle of the Sea of Wheels cultivation was now, yet. How? Bai Ye chuckled coldly, unleashing the power he had long concealed within him. It was a culmination of all his accumulated strength over the past few months, a power more vast and boundless than the universe itself. Now, no longer restrained, it was released in its entirety. With the appearance of his full-fledged physical body, the universe trembled violently. His terrifying aura seemed capable of shattering heaven and earth, tearing the entire world in two. "You've come at just the right time. I was just about to leave when you all jumped out in a hurry." Bai Ye gazed at the supreme being before him, his smile incredibly warm. "You agree, don't you? Three-dimensional attributes." 15.1. Chapter 346. Let time accelerate. How is this possible? Looking at the youth before him, whose ki and blood surged like a raging torrent, seemingly without limit, even the long-dormant indifference of the supreme being began to tremble violently. "This is absolutely impossible. You are actually an immortal," the supreme being questioned incredulously. This youth, who had only previously opened up the Sea of Wheels secret realm, was actually the unknown being who had recently unleashed such a torrent of ki and blood. Those involved are often blinded by greed, while the supreme beings, lying in wait like summer insects, suddenly understood. It could only be this way, and indeed only this way, only that immortal from not long ago could casually toss out the method of immortality. They had been blinded by greed and hadn't considered this possibility. But what was even more insidious was that no one would expect an immortal to be playing dumb to deceive them. "You come to the Big Dipper so openly, we sensed it, and wouldn't we respectfully line up to offer you a proper toast?" When the other two women stood to the side, their beautiful eyes fixed intently on the youth before them. Just as they mentioned the Golden Age, a terrifying being from a forbidden zone of life suddenly appeared before them. The quasi-emperor level bone blade that Bai Ye had relied on was easily taken away like a fire poker, truly terrifying. And in this almost hopeless moment, Bai Ye once again displayed terrifying strength. Although the difference in strength was too great for them to fully grasp Bai Ye's current power, judging from the expression of the stranger before them, he was definitely not to be underestimated. An immortal, Bai Ye didn't understand the cause and effect, but still chuckled lightly. "To you, I'm no different from an immortal now. Player has violated the rules multiple times, expected to be kicked out of the game in 3 seconds. Banned for 1 day, time is running out." Since that's the case, Bai Ye chuckled, "then let time in this universe be prolonged a bit. After all, I also want to know how far I can go now. Consider it a small experiment." As soon as he finished speaking, the ever-flowing river of time in the shrouding the heavens universe suddenly froze. No, it couldn't be said that the river of time stopped. According to the game's rules, the so-called 3 seconds are based on the reference point between Bai Ye and the real world. Even without the covering the sky universe as a benchmark, if the real world experiences 0.003 of a second, Bai Ye will still be forcibly kicked out of the game. Therefore, Bai Ye's current action of not pausing the covering the sky universe is meaningless. On the contrary, he is accelerating time, causing the time of the entire covering the sky universe to accelerate madly. Under his control, the time of all living beings, objects, and particles in the entire covering the sky universe has been accelerated. As for how many times it has been accelerated, 100 times, 1,000 times, or 10,000 times? None of these, or perhaps all of them were. Because under Bai Ye's control, the time scale of this game is constantly being stretched. Perhaps one moment it was 1,000 times, and the next moment it has stretched to 10,000 times. For the real world, 0.003 of a second is a scale farther than a lifetime in the eyes of all beings accelerated by Bai Ye. Simply put, by the time the game's 3-second time limit for Bai Ye is up, Gzi will probably have already been raised, added to the harem, and given birth to a football team's worth of children. Just as he demonstrated during his battle with Saitama, time can be infinitely subdivided for the strong. Back then, Bai Ye could only infinitely subdivide his own time. But now, at this very moment, the instant all his attributes broke through the 15 mark, he could finally allow all living beings to enter his invincible domain. Let these beings, like ants, glimpse the terrifying tip of Bai Ye's iceberg. Of course, in the eyes of the beings whose time was accelerated by Bai Ye, because they were in a state of accelerated synchronization, almost no one could feel the time being accelerated. Only a few supreme beings who understood the Dao of time could feel the rules being altered but couldn't pinpoint the problem. Because to them, everything around them was normal. Everyone accelerating was the same as no one accelerating. In the slowly flowing time, Bai Ye's gaze was fixed on the supreme being before him, his right hand slowly reaching towards the other's head. It was merely a simple, unassuming gesture, something any cultivator at the Sea of Wheels realm could easily dodge, let alone a supreme being who had severed himself. To them, the entire universe was a straight line, a mere few steps away from its edge. Yet, at this moment, the supreme being frantically tried to retreat, but couldn't widen the distance. Because, with the supreme being as the center, the surrounding space was expanding wildly outwards. Every step he took caused the space within that distance to stretch back towards him. The end result was that his coordinates were permanently nailed to his spot, every point in all directions was sealed off, and he couldn't even touch anything nearby. This seemingly short distance felt longer than the ends of the earth. Therefore, in the eyes of the others lurking around, the supreme being appeared to be endlessly running in place. With each step, his body transformed into a streak of light, but the distance that could have traversed half the universe was now immobilized. In the end, even his deathly decaying body, having reached the pinnacle of transcendence, couldn't escape the reach of Bai Ye's arm. Immortal technique. This is definitely an immortal technique, the supreme beings in the distance were certain. Although observing allowed them to understand the general principles, the ability to so easily manipulate a supreme being at the pinnacle of transcendence was infinitely more terrifying than simply killing them with a single punch. Snap! Bai Ye's slow, deliberate reach had its limits. With a soft sound, beneath the supreme being's trembling body, Bai Ye's palm pressed down on the opponent's head. "Why didn't you dodge?" Bai Ye asked softly, the same question the opponent had asked him before. Both had spoken with an air of superiority, but now the balance of power had shifted. Without giving the opponent a chance to speak, Bai Ye gently applied pressure with his 5 slender, white fingers. Instantly, intense pain surged from the top of the opponent's head. As easily as digging into tofu, Bai Ye easily crushed a claw mark on the Supreme's head, his finger force piercing through the crown and embedding itself deep into the brain. Like holding a bowling ball, Bai Ye held the Supreme's head in his right hand, lifting him up to his face. Looking at the Supreme's furrowed brows, Bai Ye said calmly, "Don't worry, there are no pain receptors in your brain. Even if I split your head into a million pieces, you wouldn't feel any pain, so, I've prepared another great gift for you," Bai Ye said with a slight smile. Chapter 347 Infinite Power Growth. At this moment, within the shrouding the heavens universe, the Supreme Being, being tossed around like a bowling ball by Bai Ye, was utterly powerless to resist, feeling utterly unable to muster any strength to fight back. He was like a rag doll being kneaded and manipulated by Bai Ye. "You, just how strong are you?" the Supreme Being asked, his voice hoarse from suppressing his emotions. "How strong?" Bai Ye chuckled lightly. "That's quite a good question. How strong is an attribute that has broken through the 15 mark in all 3 dimensions? That already belongs to the ranks of the large numbers that surpass the limits of the universe. The shrouding the heavens universe has limits, at least for a supreme being who can reach the edge of the universe in just a few steps. After all, most universes are not like those described by mathematical formulas, possessing matter with infinite properties. In the real universe, there are no infinitely small points as mathematically hypothesized. Instead, there exists a minimum indivisible scale of matter, the Planck length. Naturally, there is no infinitely thin line composed of infinitely small points. According to Bai Ye's calculations, the size of the shrouding the heavens universe is roughly equivalent to several million times the size of the observable universe. Destroying such a vast universe would require approximately 15 points of power for Bai Ye. However, with his current three-dimensional power level reaching 15.1, Bai Ye clearly knows that with just a slight exertion, he could crush the entire universe. The difference between attribute 15 and 15.1 is even greater than the difference between 1 and 15. If Bai Ye's power growth before reaching 15 was additive, then now he has officially entered the realm of second-level arithmetic, reaching the realm of multiplication. Before this, Bai Ye's power increase was roughly equal to +1 +2 +3 +4 +5 +6 +7. But after reaching 15.1, Bai Ye can feel his power multiplying by 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 per second. This is a qualitative leap. Every second, Bai Ye can feel his power value rapidly increasing. Every second, Bai Ye feels he could crush countless versions of himself who possessed that power just a second ago. But the terrifying thing is that even so, according to Bai Ye's estimation, if nothing is done, at a rate of multiplicative growth per second, it would take approximately 1 day for Bai Ye's 3 dimensions to increase from 15.1 to 15.2. After all, Bai Ye's current growth rate has only reached the most basic level 2 arithmetic. There's then level 3 exponentiation, where the next second's power is the power of the previous second's power. Next, there's level 4 power, where this second is n, the next second is n, a total of n cap. Then there are level 5, level 6, level 7. Nuth arrows, Graham's numbers, Conway's chain arrows, an endless system of expansion. But even the greatest finite difference is infinitely large compared to the infinite. Bai Ye didn't answer the Supreme's words, but instead slapped his right cheek hard with his left hand. Smack! An incomprehensible force exploded from the Supreme's body, the blood-red light visible across half the universe. A large portion of the Supreme's body transformed into pure blood energy, exploding outwards, causing the entire Big Dipper star field to tremble violently. Bai Ye gently patted his arm, his fingers remained as white as ever. Gazing into the distance. In the far reaches of the sky, only a small portion of the Supreme Beings had remained exposed, the rest had vanished. This skull, carrying the remaining consciousness of the body, was hurtling outwards at speeds exceeding light by countless times. Over 3 million light-years from the Big Dipper star field, a star was collapsing into a black hole. Traversing countless light-years, the Supreme Being's head plunged into the black hole with terrifying force in an instant. Inside the black hole, just when the Supreme Being thought he was about to die, he was astonished to find a continuous stream of life energy surging from his brain, constantly healing his body. This was an immeasurable amount of life energy for him, now being output at a stable frequency to ensure his body wouldn't be destroyed by the terrifying pressure deep within the black hole. Life energy was healing, the pressure of the black hole was destroying. The interplay of these two forces created a bizarre balance, generating an extreme pain amplified tens of thousands of times within his mind. The power sealed by Bai Ye prevented him from escaping the black hole's embrace, leaving him forever trapped within. Furthermore, the relentless pain prevented him from choosing to slumber, forcing him to endure this on. Based on the life energy Bai Ye had granted, it would likely consume only a 10 millionth of it before the entire universe was destroyed. The universe's destruction, at least tens of billions of years, almost eternity for the Supreme Being's already lived life. It seemed the pain wouldn't end until his will was eroded and he was reborn. This was the immortality he desired, bestowed upon him by Bai Ye in the most cruel way. Gazing at the silent roar within the distant black hole, countless Supreme Beings felt a chill run down their spines. Faced with this almost eternal pain, no one was willing to endure it. "We're leaving this universe now," Bai Ye said, turning to the three women with a smile. "Leave? Now?" Ji Ziyu hesitated. She hadn't said her final goodbyes to her family yet. This departure might be forever. The other two also had their doubts. They had thought their separation would be delayed, but the Supreme Being's intrusion had brought it forward. "Yes, now. It's time for this game to come to an end," Bai Ye said with a smile. As he spoke, he gently clapped his hands, and the three women were instantly drawn into his ethereal space. After doing this, Bai Ye's gaze returned to the universe. His eyes pierced through the entire world. Here, his gaze pierced through eternity, seeing the entire universe, seeing the shattered immortal realm, but beyond that, was nothingness. He took a step forward, heading towards the outside of the universe, but just as he broke through the barrier of the shrouding the heavens universe, a message appeared, arrived at the very edge of the shrouding the heavens game. The map is not yet developed. Please explore the areas ahead later. Stay tuned for the upcoming DLCs Perfect World and Sacred Ruins for Shrouding the Heavens, Bai Ye. Looking at the large golden characters in front of him, Bai Ye was speechless. So this really is a game being developed. However, although this is a world developed according to a game, it doesn't mean that this world is fake. Bai Ye could feel that every blade of grass and every tree in this universe was completely real. The most terrifying thing was the Otherworld company, which could materialize the game. However, this was no longer Bai Ye's concern. Just now, having released all his power, he had completed the task given by the main god space. Chapter 348 Packing Up the Universe. Returning to the Supreme God. The Reincarnator's strength has reached the top of the entire server in the Shrouding the Heavens universe. Mission settlement officially begins. Mission rewards. 100,000 reward points. B-level privileges. The Reincarnator will be immediately returned to the main god space after choosing to return. In the Shrouding the Heavens universe, Bai Ye nodded in satisfaction upon seeing the mission completion notification from the main god. This real-time settlement was quite good. However, in contrast, the other reincarnators wore expressions of utter despair. Having entered the game for less than a year, Bai Ye had already reached the top of the entire server in the Shrouding the Heavens universe, which resulted in the main god space also settling accounts with him. They had thought they could just lie low and take it slow, but none of these people had even reached the dragon transformation stage, so naturally they couldn't pass the review. I'm not reconciled. How could it be settled so quickly? What happened? Damn it, I haven't even reached the dragon transformation stage yet. Who's so powerful? This shouldn't be happening. The mission failed. I'll have to waste an immunity ticket. That reincarnator named Bai Ye is really something. After being eliminated by the main god, a variety of reactions unfolded among these reincarnators. But faced with the annihilation by the main god, most people, except for a few, were doomed. The next moment, as the annihilation punishment began, these reincarnators were instantly dissolved, leaving not a single particle behind. Some players who entered the game from the mortal world sensed something was wrong and wanted to quit temporarily. However, when they tried to quit, they were told their physical condition was abnormal and they were not given the option to quit. But this was irrelevant to Bai Ye, as he was about to return. However, before returning, there was one thing he needed to do. That was, to conveniently pack up the entire Shrouding the Heavens universe and take it with him. Yes, every blade of grass, every living being, every particle in this universe. He was going to grab all of these things, pack them up like red envelopes, and distribute them to the other group members. Since the game wanted him gone, he might as well take this universe with him. He wouldn't need to come back again. He could take this breakup fee and part ways amicably. All of these things combined had a total mass of approximately 3.5310 cap 59 tons, 10 million times that of the observable universe. However, for Bai Ye, who had just reached the second level of computation, this wasn't even the simplest warm-up. Take the entire universe. Bai Ye's brain grappled with thought, considering how to package it. Within his mind, countless pieces of information collided and intertwined rapidly, generating various techniques and methods. After reaching 3 dimensions of power, Bai Ye's physical attributes grew exponentially, exceeding the limits the universe could contain. Correspondingly, his mental attributes also surpassed human comprehension, reaching an unknowable and unpredictable realm. Now, Bai Ye's brain contained all of humanity's wisdom. With his computational power, he could exhaustively enumerate all of human culture. How to understand this? Following the principle of an infinite monkey typewriter, using pure permutations and combinations as a monkey would type. The probability of accidentally typing out all the information corresponding to all the characters of human civilization is approximately 1 in 2 cap 10 cap 25. With Bai Ye's current computational power, he could exhaustively run out this probability in less than a second. Or even further, anything that humans could understand. Any scheme, innovation, or idea, anything that can be described in words, and everything that human civilization can develop in the future, Bai Ye's mind can conjure up in an instant. Any difficulty that humanity can understand and overcome, Bai Ye can find corresponding information in his mind. All Bai Ye needs to do is select the optimal solution from his brain. Just as he is doing now, he randomly arranges all combinations of ninjutsu, the heaven-covering technique, and internal energy in his brain, from low to high. Through randomness alone, he creates the original 9 secrets, The Western Emperor Scripture, or fighting techniques whose content is the 9 secrets but whose name is the Western Emperor Scripture, or even techniques whose content is the Western Emperor Scripture but whose name is the 9 Emperor Scripture. So, whatever technique is needed, he can simply create it on the spot. Countless techniques are generated in Bai Ye's brain and instantly retrieved by him. Oh, found it, almost instantly, Bai Ye has combined the desired technique. Looking at the technique in his mind, titled %H, Bai Ye nods in satisfaction. The reason it was named this way, almost like typing on a keyboard with your face, was simply because it was all an exhaustive search. So, aside from the content perfectly meeting Bai Ye's needs, the name of this cultivation technique was randomly chosen. But it doesn't matter, I'll just call it Universe in the palm of your hand. Bai Ye gave this newly created technique a new name, gently extending a slender, fair right hand. What does he want to do? Watching Bai Ye's actions, the Supreme Being observing from afar felt uneasy and instinctively wanted to leave. But in the next moment, the entire world began to collapse madly into Bai Ye's palm. Contrary to the Big Bang, the entire world was now being compressed. Silently, in an instant, the entire ancient star of the Big Dipper was orderly compressed into a small point by Bai Ye without destroying its structure. Whether it was a dormant Supreme Being or a slumbering ruthless individual, they were all pulled into Bai Ye's palm. Then came the entire Big Dipper star field, galaxy clusters, superclusters, the observable universe, the entire shrouding the heavens universe. In an instant, a cube with sides of 10 and a mass of approximately 35.3 million gang-san tons appeared in Bai Ye's hand. Alright, now I can pack it up and take it away. In the void of the shrouding the heavens game, Bai Ye held the cube in his hands, smiling as he spoke. With a gentle toss, he sent the extremely heavy cube out as a red envelope. Administrator, Deep Blue, sent a red envelope to Playboy. In the Marvel Universe, less than a second had passed since Bai Ye had all members when Stark saw Bai Ye toss a red envelope at him. What's going on? Stark was completely bewildered, but still cautiously chose not to accept it. Otherwise, the entire galaxy would be crushed by this heavyweight red envelope the moment he received it. Snap! Bai Ye gently snapped his fingers, restoring the accelerated time to normal. Finally. The brief 3 seconds quietly passed. But without even a chance to be kicked out of the game, Bai Ye directly chose to return to the godhood. Within the godhood space, with a flash of golden light, Bai Ye successfully returned to the bustling godhood square. It was still crowded and lively as ever. Looking up at the various tasks above his head, Bai Ye knew he now possessed the permission to enter a lower-level world once every 3 months. Chapter 349 Taking over the universe and changing its appearance. On the main god plaza, Bai Ye quietly watched the countless main god missions scrolling overhead, each representing a new world. He chose not to enter. With his newfound authority, he could freely travel within the main god space. He had the authority to enter lower-level worlds roughly once every 3 months, and could freely return to worlds he had already experienced. However, having just completed the Covering the Sky instance, Bai Ye wasn't in a hurry to travel again. He needed to settle things with the Covering the Sky universe first. Thinking this, he silently exited the main god space, unnoticed by the surrounding reincarnators. After exiting the main god space, Bai Ye didn't reappear in the Naruto world, but instead returned directly to the Marvel Universe. He entered and exited from the same spot as before. The scene of the group photo was still vivid in his mind, and not much time had passed. The staff member on duty there was startled by Bai Ye's sudden appearance and hurriedly bowed respectfully, saying, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Bai Ye nodded perfunctorily, casually taking back the red envelope he had offered. In a private chat, Stark was frantically asking questions. "Playboy, what just happened? What's that red envelope? And how did you get to level 12 already?" Tony felt the world had changed drastically. Only a few days had passed since Bai Ye's birthday, yet his power had jumped 3 levels, almost a level per day. To this day, Tony hadn't even reached level 5, yet he watched Bai Ye leap to level 12. Oh, that red envelope is just a world. Using special teleportation, Bai Ye silently appeared before Stark, gently raising his hand to indicate, "Here, it's this." Looking down at the cube in Bai Ye's hand, Tony subconsciously said, "You mean this is a world, like the Lilliputian world in Gulliver's Travels?" "No, the people inside are all real size, just compressed in space." "This is a universe," Bai Ye said, gently tossing the cube, which transformed into a small door over 3 meters high, adorned with intricate patterns. "Want to go in and take a look?" Bai Ye asked, standing before the door. "The entire world is now this door. Unless an attack can shake the entire universe, the door cannot be destroyed. Furthermore, because this door represents the entire universe of covering the sky, anyone within its boundaries can reach any place by silently reciting their desired destination the moment the door opens, including the immortal realm." Of course, let's go." When asked by Bai Ye, Stark shrugged indifferently, spreading his hands. With Bai Ye here, he couldn't possibly kill him. Gently turning the doorknob, Bai Ye pulled the door open and stepped inside first. Here was the destroyed royal family. A door had appeared out of thin air on the scorched earth. "They're back. That immortal is back." Seeing the two appear, the supreme being in the shadows trembled. "This is the new world? Why is it so dilapidated?" Stark looked at the scorched earth around him and couldn't help but ask. "It's just because I just dealt with a nobody," Bai Ye explained. Then, with a wave of his hand, he stuffed most of the universe's memories into Stark's brain. Don't ask how he did it. For him now, whatever he needs to do, he just generates the necessary ability in his mind. Perhaps he's not as destructive as those who can wipe out the multiverse with a flick of their wrist. But in terms of the breadth of his abilities, he's almost omnipotent in the eyes of ordinary people. Recalling the extra things in his mind, Stark couldn't help but twitch his lips. He felt that Bai Ye was always different. What Supreme Emperor? He was a level 12 figure with a flick of his wrist. But when facing Bai Ye, who was also at level 12, the entire universe, including the Supremas, was taken away. The difference between them was simply too great. But that's the fact. According to the chat group and the judgment of the main god, as long as you have the power to destroy the universe, you can reach level 12. As for level 13, you need to achieve true infinity in a certain attribute. And even at the same level, the difference between finite and finite is not easy to count. So if Bai Ye doesn't continue to work hard, he will probably stay at this level for a while longer. From now on, the access to this universe is open to you. Remember to manage it well for me. Bai Ye gently patted Stark's shoulder. Managing this place? Of course, no problem, Stark said confidently, not feeling overwhelmed. After all, for the White Empire, possessing countless infinity stones, managing this universe was certainly within their capabilities. Of course, formally taking over would likely take some time. Currently, the White Empire only controls the size of a galaxy within the Marvel Universe. While talking to Stark, and looking at the supreme beings who remained silent and lurking in the shadows, Bai Ye sneered, "Still hiding? Did you think you could ignore me by not speaking?" As soon as he finished speaking, the supreme beings felt their bodies being violently pulled, instantly appearing before Bai Ye, less than 10 meters away. Seeing this formidable figure so directly before them, even the supreme beings couldn't help but tremble. But they were all figures who had once dominated an era, and despite the pressure, they wouldn't beg for mercy. "From now on, you'll listen to him," Bai Ye said, pointing at Stark. "Why should we?" a strong-willed supreme being tried to say, but was powerless to resist. As Bai Ye finished speaking, the eyes of the dozens of supreme beings present were filled with darkness, completely losing their self-awareness. Knowing the nature of these supreme beings, Bai Ye didn't give them a chance to resist, simply using mind control. Why waste words with these guys? Their self-mutilation was for immortality, so Bai Ye would let them live like that forever. "From now on, they're under your control," Bai Ye said, pointing lightly to the controlled supreme beings. "Although their power output isn't as high as the Infinity Stones, they're more versatile." "Okay," Stark nodded, then stared intently at Bai Ye's face. Fair features, long, ink-black hair, and simple yet luxurious clothing. His appearance was still perfect, but... "I was just about to say, how did you become so young? You seem to have shrunk by 4 or 5 years, Stark asked. This, Bai Ye subconsciously touched his face, a hint of helplessness in his eyes. It seems this is indeed a problem to solve. His gaze then fell on the attribute panel. Charisma. 1.4 plus attribute points to use. 2.6. Chapter 350 Charm 15. Charm. 1.4 plus attribute points available. 2.6 Looking at the values displayed on the panel, Bai Ye's thin lips tightened slightly, a thoughtful glint in his eyes. Since obtaining the attribute panel, all other three-dimensional attributes had been steadily increasing. But this charm value remained stagnant. From the first physical upgrade that transformed his body, eliminating negative states, it had only increased from 1.3 to 1.4, and hadn't improved further. This was because a charm attribute of 1.4 was already the optimal physical representation for the human species. Appearance, simply put, is a change in shape. How much could it possibly increase further? External appearance ultimately has its limits. Even if Bai Ye increased it to the extreme of 1.4999999, Mystique could still achieve the same effect in terms of physical appearance through a one-to-one replication. Even Bai Ye himself could easily create billions of versions of himself looking like that through atomic arrangement. Even the saintesses of the heavenly shroud, like Jizai and Yaozai, stripped of their halos, only had a beauty rating of 1.4, barely comparable to Bai Ye. Therefore, he had always been extremely curious, under the attribute panel's criteria, just how good-looking were those with a beauty rating of 1.5? Of course, due to various reasons and concerns, Bai Ye had never chosen to improve his beauty. After all, he felt that his looks were sufficient for both social interactions and dating, and there was no need for inferiority or improvement. Besides, if all else failed, he still had his strength. As long as his fists were strong enough, a single blow to knock him unconscious and drag him back would be more effective than any beauty rating, allowing him to achieve a home run that very day. But now, that was no longer possible, because according to this attribute panel's criteria, his youthful appearance was actually considered more attractive. What kind of Jewish aesthetic was this? So, if he felt dissatisfied and wanted to revert back, Bai Ye could only counter with an even more powerful, more absolute, and more domineering beauty. Fine, perfect, I also want to see what this 1.5 level of attractiveness can achieve, Bai Ye pondered, his body beginning to grow rapidly in front of Stark. His body and the clothes he was wearing began to expand, quickly returning him to the 18-year-old state that Stark remembered him as from a few days ago. But Bai Ye knew this situation couldn't last long. After all, according to the panel's assessment, his youthful state was the best, and his body would soon return to that state. So, Bai Ye looked at the plus sign next to his charm value and gently pressed it. Charm. 1.4 1.5 attribute points to use. 2.5. In an instant, as the attribute increase was completed, Bai Ye felt a slight tingling sensation all over his body. But like the tide, this feeling came and went quickly. Is there any change? Bai Ye muttered to himself, raising his hand to conjure a mirror, but was first silenced by his own arm. His right arm was still like smooth white jade, with no difference in atomic arrangement compared to before. But at this moment, Bai Ye felt that his right hand was very sexy? Anyway, he didn't know why, but suddenly he found his little right hand, which usually accompanied him, very pleasing to the eye. This was a thought that rose from the bottom of his heart. Before he could even react, Tony beside him suddenly leaped up from the ground, taking 3 or 4 steps back warily. You, how come you've suddenly become so strange? Stark stammered, looking at Bai Ye. He subconsciously wanted to say that Bai Ye had suddenly become so sexy or even provocative. But thinking about it, something just didn't feel right, so he had to change his words and squeeze out the comment strange. Is that so? Bai Ye replied calmly. But even his casual tone made people feel happy, as if it was a great honor to have him pay attention to you. Stark's expression became increasingly strange, as if he were seeing Bai Ye for the first time, and his heart had even skipped a beat. This eerie feeling made him forcibly shake his head, silently repeating his wife's name in his mind, trying to clear his head. But he quickly realized that this was not ideal, because the more he thought about it, the more he felt that his wife was far inferior to Bai Ye. I think you need to wake up, Bai Ye's cold voice rang out beside Stark. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed Stark and threw him, along with the other supreme beings, out of the shrouding the heavens universe, returning to his office. After clearing away the bystanders, Bai Ye conjured a mirror and examined himself through its reflection. His appearance hadn't changed much, his long, silky hair was still flowing, and his features had softened, losing some of their sharp aggression and becoming more gentle, making him look harmless. But apart from that, every inch of his skin, flesh, and hair possessed a strange, alluring effect. If Bai Ye was a well-known handsome man before, now, with this alluring effect, he was practically a captivating beauty that needed to be seduced and locked up at home for the ultimate pleasure. Is this the appearance of Tommy? Bai Ye looked at himself, A hint of surprise in his eyes. No wonder he was rated 1.5 in terms of looks on the attribute panel. His charm was extraordinary. It's likely that with prolonged contact, those around him will develop feelings for him, and perhaps even lose their minds and rebel. Besides, Bai Ye raised his hand, intending to materialize a replica of himself, but found he couldn't. It seems that once his charm reached 1.5, he possessed uniqueness, thus rejecting any imitations. From then on, only Bai Ye would look like him, there was no other way to replicate him. That's interesting. A hint of satisfaction flashed in Bai Ye's eyes, the uniqueness pleased him. He raised his right hand again and snapped his fingers. With a snap, the three women who had been stored in the ethereal space were released. Bai Ye, is this the new world? Ji Xiao asked instinctively upon emerging, but was immediately stunned by Bai Ye's appearance. Who are you? Where did you hide, Bai Ye? Ji Xiao stared at Bai Ye with wide, bright eyes. The other two women felt the same way. This was the first time in their lives they felt outshone in terms of beauty. By a man? I am Bai Ye. I just made a small change recently, Bai Ye said innocently, spreading his hands. But how could the people who have just been interacting with Bai Ye possibly believe that this guy was Bai Ye? End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.